Hello. Yes, I did find the go live button somehow. How y'all doing? It feels like ages. I think it has been a while, actually, now that I think about it. How's everybody been? Hope everyone's been doing well. I'm. That's a complicated question. But overall, I'd say decent. Still feels like I got like a frog stuck in the back of my throat, but I'm here. So, outside that, I've been I've been decent. YouTube's been being cheeks. So, but that's nothing new. I initially I wasn't gonna go live today because of my throat being booty, but I missed everybody, so y'all stuck with me. Lostrom Elements, you're late. You are late. How you doing today, Minnow? Evening, right? Hope you're doing well today. Thank you for the resub. I don't think I even have my sub wheel open right now. No, I do not. God damn it. I knew I forgot to open something. That is Queen Dweeb to you. Wasn't crazy loud. Honestly, I was kind of scared because of how long it's been since I've opened my streaming software. So I was kind of scared that everything got reset. So really happy that it wasn't. So I don't have anything too complicated planned for today. Mostly just some reacts from the backlog because it's been a while. So nothing super crazy. But you got some Fat Electrician, some Tank Museum, some Kentucky Ballistics, which reminds me, I'm a little sad. Um, I got sick. I couldn't help it. I was a little disappointed though. When the museum got back to me and they told me no, so I can't stream there. But whenever I go there, I'm just gonna I'm gonna flood the entire Discord with photos. I am going to revisit it. Don't worry. I will revisit Resident Evil. I will revisit it. Yeah, honestly I feel bad. I really do. Because it honestly, it threw a giant wrench into everything I was working on. Yeah, they're being butts. Granted, granted, granted. When I go up there, but I don't know when yet. I don't like just make sure I take entire day for it. Um, I'm still gonna bring like some of my IRL stuff, and I'm gonna ask while I'm up there. But when I contacted them the other way, they said no. But I'm gonna bring some stuff with me just in case they say yes and change their mind. So wear comfortable shoes. Well, I'm figure I'll probably use my work shoes if I'm being honest, because they're pretty well broken in and they have really good support. So I will remember that, to wear comfortable shoes. Ah! Reese, thank you for the resub. 20 months? What the fuck, man? Welcome, man. How you doing, Queen? um, I'm not fully sure if I do, because I'm waiting till like when I have other day reasons to go into Dayton, or I'm to go up that way. Seeing it's free admission. Hell yeah, bigger lunch budget. Let's go. The cat finally comes back. Yes, she does. Honestly, like I was so mad. I was sick over Halloween because I wasn't able, due to financial stuff. I wasn't able to like get the like the nun outfit, which makes me really sad. But I had like a bunch of assets all set up, ready to go, and then it's like, hey, you're down. But yes, the cat is back. And I'm hoping that I'm not gonna get sick again. Like I'm pretty sure that I think a lot of it is just from the weather change, because we've been having a lot of, oh, it's really warm, to, oh, it's actual weather for fall. And I think it, like, getting stuck between those two just really messed me up. But yeah, I'm mostly feeling better. I got got my coffee. I've been drinking a lot of like tea, some water. I have I've done a healthy chunk of stuff here. Like I was feeling more better the other day that I actually went downstairs and meal prepped a whole bunch of stuff to like make a bunch of like fajitas and enchiladas and stuff. So I'm mostly better, but not 100%, but we're playing it by ear. Although, so I'm pretty sure I asked this a while back, but I'm gonna ask again. Um, Brian, work, please. Would you guys want more like earlier streams? Or would you guys like to see some more like after work-ish ones. Because I'm working on redoing a bunch of things, so. And I want your guys' thoughts. And I just lost what I had open. God damn it. I can't have one stream without something breaking. Where did it go? I just had open. Okay, there it is. Okay, cool. But let me just find the where is it? There we are. We have got some Fat Electrician, some Kentucky Ballistics, some Tank Museum, so should be fun. Some of this has been really hard for me not to watch without you guys. As always, let me know if the sound is fucked.
And underappreciated battles in United States military history, the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir. When 15,000 US Marines and 3,000 Army soldiers got ambushed and surrounded by 120,000 Chinese Communist forces in the dead of winter, with temperatures reaching as low as -50. But despite the weather, despite being ambushed and taken by surprise, and despite being outnumbered 4-1, the United States Marine Corps led this operation to not only survive, but to kill a disproportionate amount of the enemy and save 10% of the South Korean civilian population in the process. And we're going to get into it right after word from our sponsor.
I love history. I think it's still freaking wild how much we don't really know unless we actually decide to look into it, or we have to go into the books to go find out. I always find it fascinating.
Delete me.
What's your problem?
I've been up all night. Is this Echelon?
Yes. Don't be drinking all my new Echelon.
You finally made one that's not spicy. So I'm gonna take this.
Do you want your other Echelon? All right, here's the deal. Super simple, straightforward business model. You give them money, they turn around and make sure the data brokers on the internet aren't selling your personal information. What does that even mean? Okay, here's the entire internet and every free service on the planet inside of a nutshell, okay? There's a saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. What that means is pretty much anything on the internet that you use, that's a service, whether that be Google, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all of it, okay? It's all an app, so one of two things is happening. They're either gonna feed you ads, and that's how that company makes money since their service is free, or they're going to collect your personal information, then turn around and sell it to data brokers on the internet, and then they're going to turn around and sell it to whoever buys it, and next thing you know, you're getting 17,000 robocalls every single day. And that's where Delete Me comes in. They will look through all the major data brokers and find the ones that are selling your personal information and submit opt-out requests on your behalf, and then they are legally obligated to comply. And then they'll continue to monitor these data brokers, and if they get your information again, Delete Me will submit an opt-out request again. Basically, you're paying Delete Me to get rid of all the downsides of all of the free stuff on the internet, which I think is absolutely worth it. If you want to check them out, I'll have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video.
I mean, it's not even It's not even just like free shit. Like even the stuff you like fucking pay for, they'll still sell your fucking information. It's so fucking stupid.
Alright, Battle of the Chosen Reservoir. In order to understand it, you have to understand the Korean War. And considering it's literally called the Forgotten War and most people know nothing about it, we're going to go ahead and do a little recap so we're all on the same page. After World War II, the Korean Peninsula is divided along the 38th parallel, pretty much the same border that we have today. Up north, you have the North Koreans that are communist and they are backed by the Soviet Union and China. Down south, you have the capitalist South Koreans that are backed by the United States of America and the rest of the Western world. On June 25th, 1950, the North Koreans attack. They invade south with Soviet tanks and Soviet training, and they pretty much steamroll the South Koreans, capturing Seoul, the capital, in less than 72 hours, and driving all of the South Korean forces all the way down the peninsula to a tiny little alcove where they're holding out, known as the Pusan Perimeter. And then America steps in. Why does America step in? Because at this point in time, America is practicing what is known as containment doctrine, and containment is referring to communism. Basically, the American leadership has decided that communism is bad and we don't want more of it. However, we don't want to go in there and root out the entire ideology because it would be World War III and there'd be a ton of death. So America kind of looks at communism like an inoperable cancer. We're not willing to go in there and take it out at the root. However, we're going to do everything we can to stop it from spreading. The idea being, if we can stop it from spreading, we can prevent World War III, because if we allow the communists to take South Korea or any other nation, then it's going to spread from South Korea to Japan to Australia, and it's going to go all over the world. And next thing you know, we've got World War III, capitalism versus communism, and it'd be a fucking catastrophe.
Yeah, but if let's be honest though, like there's so many other things other than communism that could kick off a world war. I mean, granted, probably like back then, that was they probably deemed that was probably the most likely, but overall, there's so much other shit that could.
Whether that's right or wrong, that was the idea and the strategy at the time. Now, the obvious thing to do would be to land all the American forces inside the Pusan perimeter and then fight your way back up the peninsula, but that's not what General MacArthur and the rest of the American leadership decides to do. They decide to take a riskier strategy of launching an amphibious landing on the other side of the country in Incheon. Why is this risky? Because Incheon is not a very viable location to launch a massive amphibious landing because it's a horrible beach. There's literally a seawall there. The only time an amphibious landing would be possible would be for 1 or 2 hours during high tide. And when you're talking about moving tens of thousands of men out of hundreds of boats in a 1 to 2 hour gap at a very particular time, that's going to require both logistical perfection and a significant amount of luck. But that's exactly what happens. On September 15th,
Won't be the first time we've done some questionable logistics and tactics, like I think it was I believe it was D-Day where we went with the one of the least advantageous points we could have done. My concentration face was very interesting. Why thank you. Why thank you. Like I'm pretty sure that part of my model's tracking's been fucked ever since I had my wisdom teeth taken out, and I have that entire issue with this part of my mouth. So so my expressions get a little fucked.
1950, America launches Operation Chromite, lands 75,000 Marines in Incheon. They immediately take over Incheon, catching the North Koreans off guard, and head straight into Seoul and take it over as well. From here, they pretty much cut the enemy lines in half, cutting off supplies to all of the men south of them, and all the UN forces break out of Pusan, pushing back up the peninsula. By early October, literally in 2 fucking weeks, America has retaken all of South Korea and pushed the North Koreans all the way back into their own country. At this point, General MacArthur, who's already pretty renowned for being arrogant, sees the outrageous success that he's had in this risky operation. He's taken over all of South Korea in like 2 weeks. Everything's going great. He gets the idea in his head of like, hey, what if we break containment doctrine and we push into North Korea and just eliminate the North Koreans completely, and then we can unify Korea.
No, don't like that.
So he takes this idea to the president and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The Joint Chiefs of Staff actually kind of like the idea, but President Truman is hesitant because he doesn't want to start World War III. So he issues the order, U.S. forces are allowed to proceed into North Korea with caution.
No, I did not, Minnow.
Disclaimer, only South Korean forces can advance all the way to the border between North Korea and China. And this is a brilliant strategy on President Truman's part. Because you have to understand, China is a communist nation that's not only backing North Korea, but they're ran by Chairman Mao, and he just got done fighting a civil war in his own country, fighting against a side that the United States was backing, and he knows that America fucking hates communism. So Chairman Mao is understandably paranoid that America is going to invade. He also is battle-hardened. He has a ton of men that are also battle-hardened. So Truman, by doing this, is saying like, hey, we'll advance into North Korea, but we're only going to send the South Koreans all the way up to the Chinese border. And this is going to send the clear message to China, hey, America's not coming to invade China. We're just going to, stop here 100 miles back, and then we're going to let the South Koreans handle the Korean business. Korea will get unified, and you can stay over there with your communism and not food. But General MacArthur, in his infinite fucking wisdom and arrogance, decides that he's going to defy the orders of the president, aka the commander-in-chief, but not only just the commander-in-chief, the same commander-in-chief that ended World War II. Clearly, that guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. So he violates orders and orders all of the American forces to advance north all the way to the Yalu River, which is the terrain feature that defines the border between China and North Korea.
That seems like a bad sign.
Now, from Chairman Mao's perspective, this is an enormous fucking issue, understandably.
All right. So, here's my thing. Supposed to be good examples. Here's the thing, Minnow. Here's the thing. I run a rather... I can't say a tight ship because I'm very laid back. But, see, y'all can give me shit. I don't care. Queen's done it. Yeetski's done it, even though he's not usually here. DDZ usually does it. So, you don't have to be, perfectly well behaved. I have a very easy to understand rules. Exactly. I can't. But the rules I have are very simple. They're not hard to not follow. So, it would be very difficult for me to just be like, oh no, I don't want this person to do this. Genuinely. The only thing that would have me be like, yeah, fuck no, is if you're just really, really new and then decide, oh, I want to do this, when you don't even really know how things are. Because there's some that are they don't know how to take a joke, or they don't know how to take sarcasm. And I can't have that around here. Because there was a person I was talking to a while back that was like, oh, hey, I want to do this. And whoosh, whenever it came to sarcasm, it just went over their head constantly. And it's yeah, no, this isn't gonna work. This isn't gonna work at all. But if y'all any of y'all interested, just message me. Don't be a stranger. I don't bite. Usually.
So, I mean, imagine if the roles were reversed and China were marching north through Mexico and he ordered his Chinese communist forces to go all the way up to the Rio Grande. Do you think America and Texas would sit there and twiddle their thumbs and hope that the Chinese were going to stop at the Rio Grande, knowing that China had taken
Texas
a vow
won.
to basically eradicate capitalism? Absolutely fucking not. So why would you expect your enemy to not do the exact same thing that you would do in that situation? Sorry, if you're getting the vibe that I don't like General MacArthur, it's because I don't. Buh! General MacArthur's a hero. He said he would return to the Philippines in World War II, and that's exactly what he did. Buh! Oh, did he? Did he fly in like Superman, shooting laser beams out of his eyes and tank the entire island by himself? Or was it the 1 million Marines and Army guys that went in there and gave their lives to liberate the Philippines? And why did he have to take a vow to return to the Philippines anyways? Was it because after Pearl Harbor had been attacked and he received early warning that the Japanese were coming, he decided to not get all of his planes up in the air, so when the Japanese showed up, they got to bomb all the planes still on the fucking ground, getting a bunch of men killed? And then he tried to delay the battle strategy of having all of his men fall back to Bataan, and instead he tried to defend the entire island at first, getting even more men killed because losing the Philippines would make him look bad. And then when pretty much all hope was lost, he decided to hop in a PT boat in the middle of night and evacuate himself and abandon his men. Is that why he had to return?
What the fuck? I need a minute. That's insane. That's so fucked. Like, Jesus. I don't like this guy. Like, I initially was not liking where this was going. But what the actual fuck? Like, you just gonna you just gonna evacuate yourself and just fuck everybody else, I guess? What? Huh? I need to punch something. I need to punch something. I knew I needed to replace my punchable enter button. I do bite, just not all the time.
Buh! That's not fair because he was ordered by the president to evacuate the Philippines. Buh! Oh, just like he was given the order by the president to not have U.S. troops approach the Chinese border, but ordered his troops to go right there anyways. It's almost like he's willing to follow orders whenever it saves his own ass, and he's willing to defy them and put all of his men in harm's way the second he thinks it's gonna pad his own fucking glory. I'm sorry, I'm getting very sidetracked. I apologize.
Almost lost my
It's okay.
cool there.
MacArthur issues the order to go all the way to the Yalu River, aka the Chinese border. Marines go into North Korea, start kicking ass, start beating their way all the way up the peninsula. They're advancing so fast that the front lines are moving faster than the supply lines can keep up. They're literally outrunning the supply lines. While that's going on, Chairman Mao in China sees that America is invading North Korea, so they do an understandable thing and start amassing hundreds of thousands of troops on the Chinese border in case America decides to attack. American intelligence knows about this. They give the reports to General MacArthur. General MacArthur ignores them.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
The Marines keep advancing north, outrunning supply lines. At this point, Chairman Mao starts sending his Chinese forces into North Korea under the cover of night on foot. By November 1st, 1950, Chinese troops are confirmed in combat with the United States Marine Corps. Hits Truman's desk, hits MacArthur's desk. MacArthur says, that's not possible. Keep advancing towards the Chinese border. November 2nd, 1950, Marines advance the Sudong Gorge on their way to the Chosin Reservoir when they are ambushed by a sizable Chinese element. Unfortunately for them, the Marines that they ambushed was the 1st Marine Division, being led by none other than Chesty motherfucking Puller, the greatest Marine of all time. The 1st Marine Division suffers 30 casualties, and the Chinese suffer upwards of 300. So that's good. The battle went about as well as it could have for war, but also pretty big fucking red flag that there's actual Chinese elements now in North Korea engaging the Marines, which MacArthur, you'll never guess, decides to ignore.
I don't see much of nothing. A matter of fact, I can't even see you, sir.
And for the first couple of
Politicians,
weeks
so
in November,
yes,
there's
indeed.
skirmishes all over the place between Chinese forces and the U.S. Marines. But MacArthur and his guys make the call, just keep pushing. So the lead element of the 1st Marines winds up in a place called Hagaru, just south of the Chosin Reservoir, which is a massive man-made lake. From here, the plan is we're going to have to split and send guys up both sides to keep advancing north. The man in charge of this section of the Marines is General Oliver Smith, and he is not happy about this idea at all. Here's the thing. The terrain in this area of North Korea is described as being straight up or straight down. Either you're going up a hill or you're going down a hill. And the roads that you see on the map are literally bank, going downhill, road, cliff. There's nowhere to go. There's
that's not
one way in and one way out, both directions.
That's
and
not
calling it
good.
a road is kind of a stretch. It's literally an old ox trail that they can barely fit a truck on. And going back the other direction isn't any better. Going back towards friendly lines, there's still one trail going to the nearest town of Kodori, and that's 12 miles away. And then from Kodori, again, there's one trail, one road that goes 35 miles back to the port where all the supplies have to come in. So at Hagaru, they are like 50 miles deep with one way in and one way out, and if anything goes wrong, they're fucked, and they want to keep advancing further in, splitting their forces under the same conditions. But thankfully, General Smith realizes this is a humongous mistake and starts stockpiling supplies at Hagaru and orders his engineers to start building an airstrip so they can fly shit in and out.
Holy shit, someone with a brain! I was so scared that there is going to be a lot more stupid on the way in this. Thank you, someone with a brain.
Seeing this, General MacArthur and his staff are like, way to go, General Smith, preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. What a brilliant plan. No, I'm just kidding. MacArthur and his staff are mad at General Smith and make fun of him for being overly cautious and slowing down the operation instead of just driving headfirst further into enemy territory with no backup plan. But General Smith, being a good leader, says, I don't really care about my own personal glory of being the first guy to reach the Yalu River. I would much rather do it the safe way and look out for my guys. So that's exactly what he does. He stocks up supplies in Hagaru and builds an airstrip. Okay, and bear in mind, it's November in North Korea. It's dipping down into like -40, -50 at night, and it snows there. We're one snowstorm away from blocking this ox trail, cutting off supply lines, and everybody freezes and starves to death. So even without the threat of the Chinese military, this was a good and necessary idea. So they set up the 1st Marine Division headquarters right there with 3,600 men and the airstrip. From here, they send the rest of the Marines and the Army guys up around the Chosin Reservoir. Up the right side, they send 2,500 U.S. Army guys backed up by about 1,000 South Koreans. While they're advancing north, they come across a place called Hudong, and after that, the road conditions and the weather is so bad they have to leave their armored unit, their tanks, there in Hudong while the rest of the men advance forward. And they end up taking up position right here, and they dig in. Going up the left side of the reservoir, they have Fox Company, 234 Marines that go up on a ridge, securing a choke point on the road right here, and then the rest of the 8,000 Marines advance into a place called Udamni, where they dig in. November 23rd rolls around, Thanksgiving. They all get to eat cold turkey while they're freezing their ass off in -20+ degree temperatures. November 24th, MacArthur comes through division headquarters celebrating, telling everybody we're all going to be home by Christmas. Hooray, and then he takes off and fucks off in his plane. What MacArthur doesn't know is that Mao has already sent in 120,000 soldiers to surround everybody at the Chosin Reservoir. And the Marines don't know that either, so they're all just hanging out, freezing their asses off. It's so cold that the lubrication that they use on their guns actually turns into jelly and would jam the guns, so they strip all their guns of all the lubrication, and if they get in a firefight, they're just going to have to run the guns dry. But that's not going to happen because MacArthur was just here. He said we're going to be home by Christmas. The war is basically won. Hooray, I just got to sit around and freeze my ass off for a few more days, and it's all going to be good. Until it's not.
Oh, I heard that one before, indeed.
November 25th, MacArthur comes through division headquarters celebrating, telling everybody we're all going to be home by Christmas. The war is basically won. Hooray, I just got to sit around and freeze my ass off for a few more days, and it's all going to be good. Until it's not. November 27th, 10 o'clock at night, both at Udom-ni, the Army position, and Fox Company, all the Marines are hanging out. They're in their sleeping bags. They're sleeping. They're waiting for the war to get over. And then they hear bugle calls off in the distance. And within minutes, all hell breaks loose as wave after wave of Chinese soldiers start rushing their position. The Marines that were up monitoring the perimeter are scrambling to get the guns up and running because the bolts have frozen in place because it's so fucking cold. They're literally pissing on the machine guns to break the bolts loose. The Marines that were sleeping are scrambling to get out of their sleeping bags and get their guns as a firefight breaks out. The Marines that are just waking up don't even have time to get all their cold weather gear on. Some of these guys are literally running around in a firefight in negative 50-degree weather with no boots, just wearing their socks. The Marines start mowing down the Chinese soldiers as they attempt to attack their position, but the Chinese just keep coming wave after wave after wave. And after the first couple of waves, the waves that are coming out now, some of them don't even have guns on them. They're just running into the battlefield, picking up a gun off a dead Chinese soldier, and then attacking the Marine position. The Marines got everything going for them. They have machine guns, they have the high ground. Granted, it's negative 50 degrees, but that affects everybody, the enemy included. But the Chinese are throwing so many men at the Marines, they can't keep up. Even with the machine guns running full clip, they're still managing to get to the Marine position. And other Marines are fighting off Chinese in hand-to-hand combat with rifles and bayonets, trying to keep them off of the machine gunners. It's literally the nastiest, grittiest warfare you could imagine. It is a knife fight inside of a freezer. The foxholes are shallow because the ground was so frozen, so the Marines literally start taking the dead bodies of Chinese soldiers and stacking them into walls, using them for cover. And it goes all night long. The Marines at Udom-ni, the Army on the other side of the reservoir, and Fox Company all fight their asses off all night. And you gotta remember, Fox Company's only 234 guys holding a position by themselves with no backup for miles, and they are getting attacked by thousands of Chinese soldiers. And if they can't hold the choke point at this road, 8,000 Marines up north at Udom-ni are completely cut off and are absolutely gonna die. Luckily, the man in charge of Fox Company is Captain William Barber, a veteran of Saipan and Tarawa, two of the biggest, nastiest battles of World War II. He radios into HQ as they're getting attacked. We're surrounded, but we can hold them. The 234 Marines of Fox Company quite literally spend their night farming the commies for XP. Captain Barber even gets shot through the leg, refuses to get medevaced, and walks around the battlefield on a crutch, commanding his men all night long. Morning breaks, the battle's over. Fox Company has sustained 24 casualties. Bear in mind, casualties is dead and wounded, whether that be from battle or cold weather. On the flip side of the coin, Fox Company literally quits counting the dead bodies outside the perimeter at 1,500. That's not including all of the ones that were wounded by the battle and the weather. Across the entire Chosin Reservoir, the Marines up at Udom-ni, Fox Company, and the Army, it's suspected that America lost between 600 and 700 soldiers, with hundreds of more wounded from either the battle or cold weather. The conservative estimates of the Chinese casualties are in excess of 12,000. The battle reports get sent down to General Smith. Smith is freaking out. He kicks them up to higher command, and higher command doesn't believe him.
I don't believe you.
So MacArthur sends out his right-hand guy, his patsy, his yes man, General Almond. Mr. Peanut shows up to the fucking Army position in his helicopter, hops out, and the Army commander informs him, I've got like 400 dead soldiers, a bunch of guys are wounded, we've captured a bunch of Chinese guys last night, and we've recognized patches from at least 2 separate divisions, meaning that there's at least 2 divisions of Chinese soldiers, 26,000 guys surrounding this position right now. To which General Almond, not believing him, says there's not 2 divisions in all of North Korea. Quote, are you gonna let a bunch of Chinese laundrymen get the best of you? End quote. He then gets in his helicopter and fucks off. MacArthur and his staff then issue the order to the 1st Marine Division to continue their advance towards the Yalu River.
Why are you the way that you are?
At this point, General Smith and his men realize that they are now basically completely on their own, and higher command has lost their fucking minds. General Smith knows that if Fox Company falls, all the Marines at Udom-ni are done for, and if he falls at the crossroads at the base of the Chosin Reservoir, the entire division is done for. The real problem is his HQ at the base of the Chosin Reservoir, right at the crossroads, has 3,600 Marines, but they're not infantry. These aren't combat troops. These are cooks and mechanics and engineers and shit. These are not hardened combat troops. But they're about to be, because he orders absolutely everybody to get their guns and get ready for a fight and pick up defensive positions, because the Chinese are coming for them next, and he knows it. And sure enough, the Chinese start launching attacks during the day on November 28th. They launch attacks everywhere they had attacked the night before, and they're now attacking the division HQ at Hageru, where General
loot.
Smith is. The Chinese penetrated so far south that they actually came up behind Hageru, and Hageru is now completely surrounded as well. General Smith knows that Mao wants to divide and conquer, and he can't let him do it, so he sends the order out to his men in the field: hold your position as long as you can, and then make your way back to Hageru so we can consolidate forces. And that's exactly what they do. They fight all day and all night on the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, and then when they can't take any more, they finally start to make their way back to Hageru. And this isn't just hop in the trucks and drive 10 miles down the road. They're completely surrounded. If they are moving, they are fighting every single inch of the way while trying to get hundreds of wounded men out the entire time. The army fights their way down to Hudong, where they reconvene with their tanks and continue fighting their way down to Hageru. The Marines have to fight their way down to where Fox Company is, reconvene with them, and continue fighting their way down to Hageru. And while that's going on November 29th, Hageru is completely surrounded. The road is cut off. They have no way of escaping. So they call up what remains of the 1st Marines down south, and they have a colonel in charge of them, Chesty Puller, who drives north and takes over the nearest town 11 miles from Hageru called Kodori. The Chinese try to stop Chesty Puller and the 1st Marines, but they can't stop him. Once he's taken the town, they launch multiple attacks trying to retake it, but they can't. From here, they immediately put together Task Force Drysdale, 900 infantry troops that are going to convoy 11 miles up to Hageru to reinforce them. Task Force Drysdale has to fight through the entire way. 1/3 of the men in that convoy end up getting killed or wounded. Another third are forced to turn back because there's so many damaged trucks blocking the road, and only 1/3 makes it into Hageru. But now Hageru has 300 infantry soldiers helping all the cooks and mechanics. As the Marines from Udamni and the army unit continue to fight their way south, the only thing keeping Hageru in this fight is the airfield, bringing in C-47s full of supplies and carrying out thousands of wounded. You know, that same airfield that General Smith got a bunch of shit for building because it was unnecessary and he was being overly cautious. Yeah, well, now it's the only lifeline they have.
I fucking knew it!
The army fights their way down. They make it into Hageru on December.
Imagine the guy with experience and sees the possible issues had made the right call. Imagine that.
December 1st. That same exact day, they've got C-47s coming in, dropping supplies, carrying out wounded, and somewhere along the lines, obviously they're running low on ammo, they're running low on medical supplies, they're running low on food. It's a complete disaster, and one of the things they needed were 60mm mortar rounds, commonly referred to as Tootsie Rolls. Well, apparently the guy loading the C-47 didn't know that, so an entire C-47 full of literal Tootsie Rolls, like the candy, shows up. Literally just cases and cases and pallets of fucking Tootsie Rolls, and the Marines are like, I guess we're eating candy and kicking ass? Why not? Bear in mind, they're still getting attacked all day and all night, just repelling wave after wave, meat wall after meat wall of commies, and pretty soon it's just dead commies and Tootsie Roll wrappers all over the fucking place. And then the Marines start to realize when it's sub-zero temperatures, Tootsie Rolls are more than just a delicious treat. If you stick it in your mouth and chew it up a little bit and take it out, it makes basically rubber cement, and they start using it to patch fuel lines and patch holes and fix all kinds of shit in Hageru.
Improvisation.
And the Marines and the army just keep fighting all day, all night. They're doing everything they can for their wounded. The cold absolutely sucks. It's freezing the morphine. People are in pain. But on the flip side, the cold is also freezing shut wounds that would normally cause a lot of men to bleed to death. So the cold actually ended up saving a lot of lives as well. Everybody's got frostbite to varying degrees, but everybody just keeps fighting their ass off day and night. And by December 2nd, the rest of the Marines from Udamni make their way into Hageru. And while all this is going on, somewhere along the line, it finally dawns on higher command that they have severely fucked up. MacArthur is just a defeated man. The newspapers back home have completely written off the entire 1st Marine Division, with newspaper headlines basically saying they're doomed, they're a lost division, they're all gonna die. Pray for your loved ones. And as the Marines from Udamni are coming in, even though they haven't read those headlines and they haven't heard that, they feel that way. Their heads are hanging low, they're beat up, they're frostbitten, they've got wounded, and it just fucking sucks. And as they come marching in, all the other Marines in Hageru and the army start chanting the Marine Corps hymn. And as the Marines hear that, they lift their heads a little bit higher and they go from staggering into Hageru to marching into Hageru. And this is it. This is a Hollywood moment. This is Eye of the Tiger playing in a Rocky movie where everybody decides this fight isn't fucking over yet. Obviously, the Marines that have been at Hageru are...
Hold on. I didn't catch what the caption was on that.
Isn't fucking over yet.
Hell, we're just advancing in a different direction. Okay, that's what that said. Okay.
Obviously, the Marines that have been at Hagaru are in a little bit better shape than the guys that were up at Udamne and the Army unit. They're bringing everybody in, they're getting them fed, they're trying to get everybody warm. You got C-47s flying in supplies, carrying out wounded, bringing in ammunition, food, rations, absolutely everything. The Marines are literally using flamethrowers to heat up the food because it's frozen solid. The Chinese are still trying to attack, but America's got air superiority, artillery, supplies. They've got everything going for them except for numbers. The question now becomes, how are we going to get everybody out of here? We could fly everybody out with C-47s, but then we're going to have to abandon all the trucks, all the artillery, all the equipment, and then you're going to have the bigger issue of once the Chinese figure out that we're flying out all of our guys, the guys that they leave out at the ass end, if they get attacked, they're all gonna die, so that's not really an option. The only option is to fight 11 miles south back to Kodo-ri with Chesty and the rest of the 1st Marine Division, and then from there they're gonna have to link up and fight further south from Kodo-ri down to the port of Hungnam, where they're gonna be able to get on a ship and get out of there. So they spend the next 4 days getting ready for this massive movement, trying to fly out the most wounded on the airplanes, but they're not gonna be able to get all the wounded out in time. They're gonna have to put them in trucks and take them with them. Now, this type of movement is what many historians and battlefield experts would refer to as a fighting retreat. Basically, you're going to have to fight while you're defending your wounded and extract the other way. The problem is, and what General Smith would later argue, this is not a fighting retreat because I'm completely surrounded. I'm not falling back to friendly enemy lines. I'm literally assaulting another direction, and that's exactly what he tells his men, and it sets the vibe for the entire operation. We're not falling back. We're going back in and through the enemy.
Let's fucking go. Get your spectral sock out, nerds. It's gonna get good.
And that's exactly what they do. The Marines punch through and fight 11 miles straight to Kodo-ri, where they link back up with Chesty and the rest of the 1st Marine Division. While in Kodo-ri, they're still obviously having supplies and everything airdropped in, and whether it was purely a mistake or whether somebody in the Air Force has a really good sense of humor, some of the supplies that they airdropped in were crates and crates of condoms.
I'm sorry, what?
Which, whether it was intentional or not, provided a much-needed comic relief because, let's face it, the Marines are only good at 3 things: getting stuff dead.
Could you just imagine being the guy to just find that? Like, like, oh yeah, we're getting some supplies dropped in. It hits this. I can't imagine being the guy who would just come upon that.
Dead, broken, or pregnant, and pretty much all the enemies dying off, everything's already broken, being patched together with fucking Tootsie Rolls. There's only one thing left they could do.
And that's it.
All jokes aside, there's still work to be done, and somebody's got to get the Marines back on task, and this is where Chesty comes up with one of the most famous quotes in Marine Corps history. Quote, "We're surrounded. That simplifies the problem. They're to the left of us, they're to the right of us, they're in front of us, they're behind us. They can't get away this time." And with that, around 14,000 Marines and 1,000 vehicles set off on this 35-mile journey. Now, remember, this is a narrow road, only 1 car wide. This convoy stretches for miles. As the lead element approaches Fuchilin Pass, there is a bridge. It is the only way to get across this massive gorge, and when they get there, the bridge is blown
He's
up
not
right in
wrong.
the middle with
Yeah,
a
he's not.
29-foot gap in it. The Chinese have them trapped. There is no other way out. This is it. This is game over for anybody except for America. Because America has the greatest logistical capability that the world has ever seen. So when the Marines get on the radio and say, "We need a bridge," the Air Force simply replies, "Copy." The Marines then leave the trucks on the road, fight up the ridge, take the high ground, and start engaging the enemy for hours, giving the Air Force time. While that's going on, the Air Force acquires 8 portable bridge sections weighing 3,000 pounds apiece that have never been dropped out of a plane before, do practice runs figuring out how to drop these things out of a plane without breaking them and without getting people killed, figures it out, and airdrops the bridge pieces back at Kodo-ri, where the Marines load them onto trucks and bulldozers and get them in the convoy headed to the bridge. And this gets done in the span of less than 24 hours. Once the bridge pieces make it there, with the Marines still engaging the enemy and the workers under fire, they then install the bridge sections and have it go from "there's no bridge here, we're fucked" to "hey guys, we've got a bridge in less than 36 hours. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this was during the worst weather of the entire affair, with temperatures dipping down to negative 55 degrees during a blizzard where visibility was less than 50 feet in front of your face. And that's it. Once they cross this bridge, they're home free. There's a couple of more skirmishes between here and Hungnam, but they just wipe them to the side.
yeah,
You gotta
logistics
remember,
are
the Chinese
everything.
have been out there just as long as them, and they're not getting all this resupply and everything else. These guys are hurting. They're rolling up on setup ambushes and checkpoints, and the Chinese soldiers
I'm
are...
pretty sure that our biggest thing, I think, for logistics was the Berlin airlifts is the main one I could think of. That was our largest, one of the largest flexes. I'm not sure if there's another one that was big, that was harder than that. I have to look into that later.
Are literally just frozen solid in place. And as they're making this multi-day voyage to Hungnam, this last 35 miles, the weather breaks and it goes from being negative 55 degrees to like 30 degrees, an 80-degree temperature shift, and to these guys, it's fucking hot out. So when the 14,000 Marines roll into Hungnam, the same Marines in newspapers have been saying they're as good as dead, they're doomed, they're a lost cause for weeks, roll in, they do it sitting on top of tanks and in trucks like half-dressed. So they link up with the UN forces in Hungnam. There's now 100,000 men there, but there's still hundreds of thousands of Chinese that are coming down as reinforcements to crush them. They got to get out of there as soon as possible. They've got 100 ships to load everybody up on, but then things get complicated because 100,000 Korean civilians start showing up from all the towns and villages nearby because the Chinese were looting them and killing them, or they just don't want to live under the threat of communism their entire lives. And they just start walking to Hungnam and beg them to help. We've only got 100 ships to get 100,000 of our own guys out of there. I don't think many people would judge them if they said, I'm sorry, we can't help you. We're trying to do everything we can, but we got to save ourselves first. But that's not what they did. U.S. forces have lost a ton of men. They've got thousands of wounded. They've got over 10,000 men suffering from frostbite, and they say, fuck it, we can still impromptu successfully pull off one of the largest humanitarian evacuations in the history of the world. Why not? They rigged the entire city to blow up, including the port, and then loaded absolutely everybody, the UN troops and 100,000 civilians on board of these ships, and it is just ass-packed like sardines. To give you an idea of how packed it was, the USS Meredith, a merchant marine vessel that only had 68 crew members, managed to cram over 14,000 Korean civilians on board. And on an extremely dangerous 7-day voyage to safety, not a single one of them would die. In fact, 5 people were born, giving it the nickname the Ship of Miracles. So they got absolutely everybody evacuated onto ships, got underway on this extremely dangerous 7-day voyage, and then blew up the entire city. Over 1 million people in South Korea today are descendants of those civilians that the UN troops saved. At the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir, 1,079 American troops died in combat. Another 4,582 were wounded, with thousands more suffering from frostbite. Conservative estimates from the UN believe that the Chinese military suffered somewhere around 43,000 casualties, with other credible estimates ranging as high as in excess of 60,000. The Chosin Reservoir would go on to become one of the most decorated battles in American history, with the men earning 17 Medals of Honor, including Captain Barber of Fox Company, 73 Navy Crosses, one of which went to Chesty Puller, and 23 Distinguished Service Crosses. Many of the Marines that survived the Chosin Reservoir would later in life go on to express great pride in the fact that they not only managed to save themselves, but they managed to save South Korea as well. And allegedly, many of them requested to be buried with Tootsie Rolls. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Those guys, they were so tough, and what they had been through. You know, you see things like that, and you go, what are the limits of a man's endurance and his courage and his spirit?
We felt that we were going to kick some butt, and we were kicking butt up there. Until you got to Hellfire Valley, I should put that in there. I would say when I got to Hellfire Valley on the way out, walking out, you could almost cry seeing those Marines laying there. Until you see your guy laying there You don't think much of it.
As we got near the lines, we were aware that we were getting into Haggeroo. Somebody said, count, cadence, count. And people started getting in step. You could hear the shoe packs, first clumpity, clump, clump, clumpity, and then there was clump, clump, clump. People were getting in step. We were marching.
We marched into Haggeroo. The sound of feet crunching in the frozen ice. Someone watching us said, "Look at those bastards, those magnificent bastards."
You're not the same person. You're a different person. You're just something you never thought you'd be.
I'm happy that I was able to participate in something that was as important as the Korean War.
We had an obligation to fulfill, and we did it. Freedom has a price. It's not free. You have to fight for this freedom. And when I look and see what the South Korean people are enjoying today, I guess I'm glad I was part of that.
Time proves that we were absolutely right in doing what we did to help save them.
You're proud that you did it. You don't realize how proud you are until you get older. I don't know why, but I can relate and say I was a chosen survivor. You know, it's... Not everybody can say that. I was there. You're proud of the moment. And you're glad you survived. And God bless America, that's all I can say.
Well, that was... I got no ending words for that. Though, if that was a link to, if that was from like a documentary or something, though, I might put that on my watch list, because I like documentaries. Like, I didn't know I was getting into it this one, like, but fuck MacArthur, fuck that guy. That's the... That was... It was definitely interesting. Definitely interesting. Seeing the world have the cleanest bodies, the filthiest minds, the highest morale, and the lowest morals of any group of animals I've seen. Yeah, MacArthur's a fucking dick. Although, I think that's too nice. Because, that's too nice. I don't know what the words are right now, but calling MacArthur his dick is way too nice. He's a fucking travesty. He's a fucking travesty. Vietnam hunter killer groups in Discord. If you had followers, you might only have Democratic Korea. I mean, maybe. It's hard to say. I think I pulled that video up. I think I have it queued. Because, I mean, we might, but, you know, we may not. Because you never know what would have happened otherwise. Just did this video, so we can close this. Vietnam Hunter Killer Groups. It must be this one. Oh, let me see how long this is. Okay, that's a long one. I find the audacity wild. That it's like, just gets told consistently, you should do this thing, you should do this thing. And then the information hits them, and it's like, yeah, no, this is wrong. This can't be happening. Like, the audacity. Yeah, that's definitely too long for stream. But I will watch that in my downtime though, Wraith. Oh, was it the American troops so close to you, or China would have been less interested? Yeah. You could hope. Because the thing is like, with what he did is, he gave them a reason. He gave them a reason to come closer and come in. Granted, they may or may not have. This is true. But definitely would have been less likely. Well, truth of people commanding armies not being on the front line, being behind a desk. Well, on one hand, I understand if you're stuck behind the desk, you can't, what is it? You don't get as much of a picture, but I think at that same time, if you're getting reports and information from the front lines that are saying, hey, there's this going on, you should trust some of that information from the front line. You should have some trust in the people under you to be giving you the information, and not just be like, oh yeah, this can't be right. These guys wouldn't have pushed in. No, they would never. They wouldn't do that. That's not possible. Like, bruh. We're long past the days of kings leading their armies from the front. Yeah. But they should still, even if they're like behind their desk, they should have some faith in the information that they are getting from the field, and not just discount it because they personally believe that this thing isn't happening. And I think that's honestly what really just boggles me about it. Is he got the information, he's just like, no, you're wrong. This is wrong. Nailed it. Like, I just... I would... No. I was gonna say, I wish I could understand the mental gymnastics that he was going through to be like, no, this is wrong. But at the same time, I'm also like, I don't think I really want to understand that mental gymnastics. Did I nail it like the Romans? No, I did not. I did not. But the ball landed in the trash can, so yes, I did nail it. Alright. So, opinion. More fat electrician or Kentucky ballistics? No, I've been in like a massive peach tea kick. This would be the, could you defeat Omega Furby? It was on my, homepage. Which, for the record, I find Furbies fucking terrifying. He's gonna shoot Furby. Furby's fucking terrifying, so honestly. I'm on team destroy Furby. Furbies are terrifying. Like, when I first saw Furby, like, I had nightmares for like a couple weeks. Furby cult time. No, not the Furby cult. No, 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 no. We are not having a cult made of Furbies or a cult worshipping Furbies. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. No. No. They used to be at McDonald's. Too late. No. What am I gonna have to do? Am I just gonna have to? Is it like just a bunch of Furbies and like cult costumes? I'm gonna have to take my machete and just beat them up with it? Like. Real talk. I would not put myself anywhere near a Furby. Those things are freaking terrifying. I mean, look at it. It's that stare. Like, no. It's. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much. Like, I don't know what a Mega Furby is, but I'd be running the opposite direction. It's like, yeah, no. Furbies are immortal. No! 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 about the immortal Furbies. Alright. Alright. Could you defeat a Mega Furby?
Ah! Furby! Where do these things keep coming from?
That is literally how I feel about Furbies. Literally how I feel. But yeah, we are off to a great start. I am already all for this.
Dumo ata. Yum yum.
I'm gonna need more firepower. What's up, everybody? My name is Scott, and you're watching Kentucky Ballistics. And over the years, we have shot some really cool creatures around Halloween time. We've done vampires, we've done werewolves, we've done gremlins, and this year I have the most terrifying creature to ever exist. The world's largest Furby. This mother of all Furbies was created by Ballistic Dummy Labs. Once again, they have outdone themselves. This thing is 250 pounds.
Jesus.
That's me in Furby form. This thing's about 2 foot tall, 2 foot wide, about 21 inches thick, and about 3 foot from ear tip to ear tip. As you can see, this Furby is quite large, but its skeletal structure is a little small. It's got a tiny little rib cage, some little femurs, but its head is about 3 times the size of mine. And that
Honestly, the one made out of the ballistics gel looks a lot nicer and friendlier than the toys.
As you can imagine, to pack around all this weight, this Furby has been blessed with quite the gluteus maximus. Look at all that! I know how to handle a normal-sized Furby, but what does it take to defeat a Furby of monstrous proportions? Well, today I have brought quite the variety of weapons and tools, and we're gonna find out what would be most effective if you were to stumble into a Furby hive and have to battle a queen Furby. I am very excited about today's video, so let's go get set up and get started. But before we get started, I want to tell you about something awesome that today's sponsor, Hold Up Displays, is doing for Veterans Day. Between October 14th and November 11th, Hold Up Displays will be giving $776 to local veterans in need for every 12-foot American flag gun wall that is sold. And when you purchase one of these 12-foot American flag gun walls, not only are you helping veterans, but you will also receive one of these signed Polaroids that I have taken over the last few years, but there's some really good ones in here. And you'll be entered in to win one of these 16 pieces of memorabilia that are also autographed. If you're looking for the next level when it comes to gun storage, you definitely need to check out Hold Up Displays, and specifically the American flag gun wall. This baby right here is made out of high quality materials, is strong, and is gonna last. Don't forget, this is only October 14th through November 11th, and promo code Kentucky will get you a signed Polaroid, and you will possibly get a signed piece of memorabilia. And on top of that, you are helping veterans. There is a link in the description down below. Again, a big thank you to Hold Up Displays for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get back to it. So today we're gonna start out with what I believe would be the least effective and work our way up to what I think would be the most effective. And our first weapon is going to be a cattle gun. So this uses a 22 blank, and it causes a rod to shoot out the end of this thing, and like I said, it's used on cattle. And you may have seen it in the movie No Country for Old Men, but this one does not use an air tank. So we have our 22 blank, and now I'm just gonna put it right behind the Furby's ear here and hope for the best. Here we go. Okay. Yeah.
Damn.
I think this Furby is a little too thick for a cattle gun, and
I don't think I want to get this close to the Furby. I'd like to stay back a little bit. I don't know what this thing is capable of. So up next is going to be a Smith & Wesson 37 millimeter gas gun. And I have some animal control concussion rounds. Let's see how effective this is on the Queen Furby. Okay.
I love this.
Here we go. Oh, where did it go? Ah!
Ooh!
So it turns out giant Furbies
Ooh.
are immune to 37 millimeter. Moving on, up next is going to be a harpoon gun. This is actually the same harpoon gun that they use in the movie Jaws. And before we use an actual 1-pound harpoon, we're gonna see if we can just knock this Furby unconscious with my fist harpoon. So this greener harpoon gun works off of blanks. This is basically a .357 Magnum blank. Load that in there, and then you're good to go. Now let's see what happens when we hit this Furby square in the face with a big blue fist. Here we go. So we had a good hit with our big blue fist, and actually if you look right here, we cracked the Furby's skull. So I would say this would be effective enough to at least knock the Furby out for you to get away. Now up next, we're gonna use a 1-pound harpoon, but I wanna know, what if you don't have a good shot on the front and you gotta shoot this thing from the back? And this Furby be big. Okay, here we go. Oh!
Ooh. I kind of like how he's like considering like the different angles you might have to go for it if you were to have to be dealing with it. I really appreciate that.
Oh! I think we managed to make it through all that Furby booty meat. Yeah, judging from that, it looks like we still managed to make it to some bone or something in there. That is very deep. Oh.
That must be like
penetrated
slimy.
pretty deep. I'm gonna say harpoon gun versus Furby. If you could get up close, may be a good choice. So now we're gonna move on to firearms. We're gonna start out with a 22 Magnum. This is a Kel-Tec PMR 30, and I'm loaded up with a 40 grain 22 Magnum. All right, here we go. Okay, mag fell out. We hit right here, and we definitely did not make it through the Furby, and I think we stopped on its femur or something. So I'm gonna say 22 Magnum may not be a great choice for monstrous Furbies. Up next, we're gonna step it up to 380. I have my bedazzled high point, and I'm loaded up with some 380 Hornady Critical Defense. All right. Here we go. See if I can even hit this thing. All right, I think I lost a few sparkles when I shot that. Yeah, lost one of my gemstones. I'm gonna stick that in my tooth. So we had a good hit right there, but it doesn't look like that 380 did much. Not really sure if I would recommend that for Furby defense. So our next caliber is going to be 38 Special. This is Hornady Critical Defense, and these are 110 grain. And the 38 Special I have is rather unique. This is the palm pistol. So to load this thing, push this button, you put your round in there, and then once this is closed, you have to depress both these safeties, and then you push the shiny red button. I feel like this would be a worst case scenario and probably the last thing you'd want against a giant Furby, but let's see what happens. Here we go. Oh!
Well. So I've already go though.
It's that blast pattern on this thing. That did quite a bit actually, but I don't think we made it to vitals. I think I can see that round in there, and This Furby still isn't bleeding. And if it doesn't bleed, then we can't kill it. Up next, we're gonna step it up to 9mm. This is a Century Arms AP5M, chambered in 9mm. I have a 20-round mag, and I'm loaded up with 10 rounds of Hornady Critical Defense 9mm. First, I'm gonna try this thing out. I've actually never shot it before.
Doesn't mean it hasn't shot before.
It's pretty sweet. I actually like that quite a bit. Now, let's shoot the Furby. Here we go. Oh! Okay, we had a good hit with the 9mm. I actually hit right next to the 380. And again, have not made it to any vitals. And we did not make it through this thick old Furby. Up next, we're gonna step it up to the Lord's caliber 45 ACP. And I have a Keeling Customs super duper long slide 1911. This has
Furbies
a
are looking
16-inch
kind of
barrel,
terrifying.
and I'm loaded up with 1 round 45 ACP Hornady Critical Defense. This Furby doesn't stand a chance now. Here we go. Oh!
Or does it?
I'm surprised that Furby didn't
Talk
go
about
back.
compensating.
This is a very good sign.
Yeah.
We hit right here, and as you can see, there's some green going on.
We
in
made
there.
contact!
So, we did manage to hit vitals. Would it be enough to stop the Furby? I don't know, but at least I know I can be fairly effective with a super duper long slide 45. So up next, we're gonna step it up to 10mm. I have another Keeling Customs super duper long slide. This is a Glock 20 with a 16-inch barrel, and I'm gonna be loaded up with some Underwood ammo, 135 grain jacketed hollow points. These things are absolutely screaming. All right. See how the Furby likes this. Oh!
Jesus.
Oh! Oh! He's beakless. So we had a good hit right here, and the sheer force from that 10mm round hitting him
Mine's a werewolf guy from
blew
Hellsing
a piece
Ultimate.
of his
Kinda,
beak off.
yeah.
So I would say that's pretty effective. We still didn't make it through the Furby, but at least it would shut him up. Most of these shots so far have been but a flesh wound to this Furby, so
Tis
it's
but
time
a
to step it up to
scratch.
some big boys. So up next is the Desert Eagle.
This
This
Furby's
one is
hairless.
suppressed, and I am
Well, to be fair, it'd probably be a lot of work to, well, not really a lot of work to make a hair, to put hair on it, but if you put, like, a bunch of, like, hair on, you wouldn't be able to see, like, potentially how far it went, or how much damage it would theoretically take. So, I understand why they wouldn't make it, why they wouldn't coat it. Because then it'd be hard to assess the actual potential damage.
loaded up with some 440 grain subsonic 50 AE. All right. Here we go. Let's see how you like this. Ooh.
Ooh. If its hair stronger than its skin, then we got problems.
Okay. Apparently, this hits a little low. I hit him right there. I'm sure that wasn't too pleasant. Let's see if it made it through the back. I think it just scooted out the back. So I know I need to aim a little higher. Let's take a second shot. Here we go. Oh!
Ooh, that one shook.
That.
Wait, did it come out?
So this time I hit right here, about where his belly button would be, and it looks like we made it pretty deep into this Furby, but I don't think we made it all the way through, which honestly I'm pretty surprised about. The Desert Eagle did not have enough horsepower to make it all the way through that Furby, so now we're going to step it up to the Mac Daddy of handguns, the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, and this is a special one. This is my gold 500 Magnum that I got from none other than Demolition Ranch when I beat him in a slap contest.
Wait,
He still
what?
feels that loss every single day. And I'm going to be loaded up with some Underwood ammo, 375 grain XPB 500 Magnums. This is a serious round for a serious target. Here we go.
Oof. Sounded.
She be kicking.
Right for the eye. I've only seen Furbies in herds.
First of all, I need to point out that this Furby has got some leakage on this table. I'm guessing from these lower shots. As for the 500 Magnum, I hit right in the eye, and it went all the way through this thing, but maybe a few inches. It still did not make it all the way through the Furby. It's right there.
Jeez.
That is insane. Now it's time to step it up to a shotgun. And if I had to pick one shotgun to take against a giant Queen Furby, it would be a 10 gauge shotgun. This is a Browning BPS 10 gauge shotgun, and I'll be loaded up with 1 round of turkey shot. This is a 3.5-inch shell, and then 1 round of double-aught buck. This is also a 3.5-inch shell, and this has 18 pellets in it. Here we go. Turkey shot is first. Blew his ear off.
Well, she...
Now, for the buckshot, here we go. Oh, that ain't looking too good.
Damn.
So our first round with the turkey shot about took his whole ear off, but still hanging on there pretty good. Second shot was the buckshot. We hit somewhere in this area, and if you look back here, we have quite a few pellets that almost made it all the way through, and I think maybe one would have eked through the back. So now it's time to step it up to rifles, and the first rifle we're going to use is an AR-15 chambered in 5.56, and for a big old Furby like this, I think we need a little bit of extra velocity. So we have my super long barrel AR-15. This has a 40-inch barrel, and I'll be loaded up
That's
with
a
some
long
Underwood
barrel.
ammo, 5.56 controlled chaos. Let's see how the Furby likes this. Oh,
There goes his other
blew
mouth.
off the other part of his beak, so he ain't talking now.
It just makes angry noises
Okay,
now.
so we hit right here, and it looks like most of that round broke up long before it made it to the back. So now we're going to step it up to 7.62 by 39. This is a CMMG Descent, and I'll be loaded up with some Underwood ammo, 7.62 by 39 controlled chaos. Here we go. Oh, blew his beak off again.
No, you didn't blow it off again. You're just finishing the job. Get it right.
So I hit somewhere in this area, and we still have not made it all the way through this Furby. I think it's going to take some real serious firepower if everything we have used up to this point still has not made it all the way through. Up next, partner, it's going to be 4570. This here is my mare's leg 4570 made by Rossi, and I'll be loaded up with a 405 grain 4570. Here we go, right down the middle.
Oh!
Oh!
We get some damage.
That looks bad.
That's some damage.
Shoo-wee. Well, looks like Furby threw up a little bit. That was kind of gross. I was aiming somewhere in here. It's really hard to tell at this point. We definitely did some damage internally. We may have, I don't know. Yep, we finally made it through. 4570, managed to make it through the Furby. So at this point, when it comes to gigantic Furbies, I'm going to say my base, my bare minimum, is going to be a 45-70. That's the only thing that has managed to make it through this thickness. 45-70.
But, like, why does Furby have to have so much cake? Like, there's no reason for Furby to be that caked.
Maybe my base at this point, but my main squeeze would probably be a 416 Rigby. This is a Seiko 85 XL chambered in 416 Rigby, aka 416 Honey Badger, because this thing don't care. This is a 350 grain hot core, and it is gonna cause some damage to this Furby. Here we go. Sorry, little guy.
Oh!
Oh! Yeah, I think that'll do it.
Whew.
Yikes! Yeah, we got a lot of damage going on here with this Furby. Hit right
He
here.
was just born with it.
As you can see, its entire skull is pretty damaged, and if you look back here, we have a nice green exit wound. So 416 Rigby would definitely be a suitable choice for taking on a monster Furby. So we've done quite a bit of damage to this Furby, but we still haven't had anything make it all the way through the thickest part of it. But I think this next gun has the capability to do that. This is my ShyTac M200 Intervention, chambered in 408 ShyTac. It has a custom paint job on it. You can see here I have my Kentucky Ballistics logo, and on the bottom, on the carry handle, it says just put a thumb in it. And I'll be shooting a 419 grain 408 ShyTac, and that is solid copper. I'm gonna get down low so I can get it at its thickest point. Here we go. Oh.
Looks like he'd be limping.
That 408 ShyTac hit that Furby so hard that it blew its ear off. It is slowly peeling off its face. I'm gonna go ahead and just help it out. Ow! What in the world? Furbies have thorns apparently. Gonna have to operate. There we go. Nice. I'm gonna turn that into a keychain. As you can see, the Furby is not doing so good right now. It's definitely on its last leg, and we did manage to make it through all this thickness right here. There is a new exit hole right there to the slow-mo. You see that open up and the round pass all the way through. So when it comes to maximum penetration, I'm gonna say 408 ShyTac will get the job done. But you know, when it comes to really big creatures and you wanna be 100%
Ooh, that's a long
sure
boy.
that you're gonna be armed to the teeth, you could always try an anti-tank rifle. This is the British Boys anti-tank rifle, chambered in 55 boys, and it fires this 55 caliber 940 grain round. And if cool firearms like anti-tank rifles and weird creatures like giant Furbies are something you enjoy seeing, I highly recommend you hit that subscribe button. This thing is meant to shoot prone, but we're gonna go from a knee and point blank. There we go.
Holy fuck.
I'd say that'll do it. Okay, so I'm gonna say that
He's done. He's been slain.
Anti-tank rifle would definitely be a good choice when taking over
No
or
kill
mating
like
a
overkill.
Furby hive. The Queen Furby or Monster Furby, whatever you want to call it, definitely wouldn't stand a chance. Half of its face is here on the table, and we 100% made it all the way through. Still think it needs a few more, don't you?
Yeah.
This is
I wonder if he
wild.
has like a
Back
deal with
here,
the guys
almost
who do
none of that 10 gauge.
the ballistic stuff.
Made it all the way through this Furby. There's one of the pellets right there on the table. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope you enjoyed those 10 gauge mag dumps. Those were brought to you by STI. And if you want to get your start in firearms technology, be sure and check them out. There's a link in the description down below. There we go. That is a lot of Furby meat right there. Package that up, put it in your deep freezer. It'll last you at least 6 months, maybe 8. So it turns out giant Furbies are actually pretty worthy opponents. This thing was able to take a ton of damage and just keep on going. Let me know what you thought about the giant Furby in the comment section.
Needs to be
below.
bigger.
If you enjoyed today's video, be sure and give it a like. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and be sure and check me out on all other social media platforms. Links to those can be found in the description down below, along with a link to KentuckyBallistics.com, just in case you want to pick up a shirt. And as always, my name is Scott. Thank you so much for watching.
Wait till it
Kentucky
starts charging with its children. No! That's a terrifying thought.
Gotta take a piece of this home, you know? Don't want to let all this meat go to waste.
This is just like Patreon stuff at the end, right? Yeah. So, what I do know that is, we definitely do not want a Furby that is, building sized, because that's not gonna go well. Honestly, I'd be terrified of a Furby even if it was like, bear size. Like, no, I don't. Why did I do that to myself? I shouldn't have thought about that. I shouldn't have. That's a terrible image. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much. Fuck. Now I'm thinking about giant building size Furbies rampaging or Godzilla's size Furby destroying buildings. Like, no, why did I do that to myself? Why must I do that to myself? Wait till it starts charging with its children. The Scarlet Ami giant Furby. No. 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 I ain't going anywhere near Furby. Scurby. No! No. 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 New manga reincarnated as a Furby. Stop. That hurts. That hurts. That hurts. Like, what would that even be about? It's a Furby. Please, enlighten me. What would you even do as a Furby? Would you just, like, terrorize children? Actually, wait. Terrorizing children does sound fun. That does sound fun. Furby conquers the human world. No. We don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need that one. That's one thing we don't need. Furbies are terrifying. We don't need more of that. Fucking hell. I'm still trying to figure out what the whole Furby versus Labubu. Alright. I'm about to admit how fucking uncultured I am. What is Labubu? Like, cause I've seen it, the word, but I don't know what Labubu is. Creepy new thing. Is this like a creepy pasta thing? Or is this a little different than that? If it's like creepypasta, SCP kind of stuff, I don't really pay much mind to that. It's an ugly ass doll that people spend money to waste money on. Hold on. I'm gonna regret this. I'm gonna regret this. It's a real mythical creature. Labubu. Okay, it looks adorable. At least the plushies that are coming up. Interesting. Physical NFT that millennials want. Look, I may be obsessed with like plushies and whatnot, but I don't know. I don't. I'm kind of picky about my plushies at the same time. I'm a little picky. Like, I think it looks adorable, but it's not something I would get. Like y'all know I have a freaking Master Chief plush. Y'all know this. Like, I have bunnies. I got like a plushy dragons, squishmallows. But I don't like, I think they're cute. I think it's adorable, but it's one of those that if I was to get it, it wouldn't be one I would keep. It would be a case of I was like, oh, I have too many of these. It would be in the yeet, and it's gone. So, you'd rather have MLP. I don't know. I put them, like, and how much I would get them if they were plushies or toys. I have them in the same ballpark. They don't really interest me. But I'm still stuck on the physical NFT because I'm looking at this and I see it. I see it and I hate it. My brain did not like perceive any like collection to that until you like said it, when you said it, and now I can see it. I don't even see the appeal of NFTs. No, I know one of my friends are like really big into them, but I never saw the appeal. Not to say like people shouldn't or shouldn't do what they want. Like people are gonna do whatever the hell they want. They can spend their money however the hell they want it. I just not my thing. A scam you don't like one of my friends tried to explain it to me. They tried and I'm just like I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not yucking it, but I don't see the appeal. I prefer like things I can actually hold in my hand. I prefer like physical artwork. Even like the digital art I get, like I print it. And I'm like once I have like a board that I can like hang up so I don't like stick it directly on the wall. I'm just gonna have like this entire thing of all the like any artwork or what I get commissioned or friend gives me whatnot. It's just gonna be there. Would I adopt a Furby if I found a live one? No. If I find a Furby, I'm taking my machete and I am beating the shit out of it. I find them terrifying. And then if it's like one of the ones that we just saw from Kentucky Ballistic, I'm running the fuck the other way. I will run through traffic. Just like the times I was in New York City, where you have to commit if you're gonna cross. But yeah, no. No Furbies. No Furbies. Definitely not. I'm not gonna say it's crazy, but depending on where you are and where you're trying to cross, you have to commit. You have to commit to the crossing. Like, I fucking hate, 'cause I know one of the places, which I think a lot will agree with me, if they've been in, like, down that area. I fucking hate Times Square. Like, you could try and pay me, and I will go intentionally avoid that entire area. If I could help it. No government spy devices in your house. Well, you know what? Yeah, we can try and avoid that. Oh, let's be real though, they're gonna eventually find their way into everybody's house. Like, as I know, even like with my phone, I have location services disabled. So my phone's like, oh, I can't tell you the weather, and it's like, that's the fucking point. I don't want y'all to know, anything knowing shit. And there are times I will unlock my phone, and up in the little corner, I see the little location services button, and it's like, fuck. It's, I hate it. So they're eventually gonna find their way through. Eventually. Like, I'm pretty sure you'd have to just, like, go completely no, like, tech or anything like that to completely avoid it. And even then, they're just gonna spy on you through your fucking computer. Like, it's coming, but it's just, don't know when. So. Did I just close the tab I was looking for? I think I did. God damn it. Yep, I did lose the one I was looking for. You know what? We'll just grab, how your tank guns get so deadly? Yeah, we'll do this one. You can do that one. That's fine. AJ, why would you do this to me? I did not need that image. I did not need to open Discord and see Furby. Why? Why would you do this? They're fucking terrifying. Not fucking Furbies. Why are y'all like this? No! No! Keep the Furbies away! I don't want it! I don't want it! Keep the Furby away from me! Please! Have mercy! Have mercy! I beg you! Furbies are terrifying. But not as terrifying as clowns or mascots. Oh, so it's puntable. Okay, if it's a puntable Furby, I can work with this. If it's puntable. Okay. Alright. How did tanks' guns get so deadly? From the Tank Museum. Suggested by Minnow.
Firepower, mobility. This is what we call the iron triangle, the essential components of the tank.
Please remember to like, subscribe, or click the little notification bell if you don't want to miss out on these videos. And I'd just like to say thank you to all our patrons for making this possible. Please join them if you can.
In this episode, we're going to be looking at the evolution of firepower from the First World War up to the present day.
I find tanks
Specifically,
fascinating.
The main gun, the main armament of the tank.
It's a history which mirrors the changing role and requirements of the tank on the battlefield, from supporting infantry to fighting other tanks.
Now, this is a massive, complicated subject, and all we can give you here is an overview. So if there's anything you think we've missed out, or anything you'd like to hear more about, please leave a comment below. Let's start at the beginning. On the Somme in 1916.
The stalemate of trench warfare demanded an innovative solution. Machine guns and barbed wire resulted in huge infantry casualties in no man's land.
That's why we see the invention of the tank, first used by the British Army in September 1916.
They were to provide close fire support for the infantry, smashing through defences and barbed wire so the troops could follow in behind and exploit the gaps the tanks had made.
British heavy tanks in the First World War, and this is the last surviving example of Mark I, which is the first time.
Oh, she looked old.
Come in two types. There are males and there are females.
Wait, what?
They're designed to solve two different problems on the battlefield. Now, the
tanks being classified as male or female is not on my bingo card for this. Don't get pissed. Someone's gonna take this out of context and would see it out of context, and they would just lose their fucking mind.
Females are machine
Especially
gun
on Twitter.
First of all, Vickers guns, then Lewis, and then Hotchkiss. They're different weapons. The Vickers gun is belt-fed, the other two are magazine-fed. But the thing they've got about them is they've all got roughly the same rate of fire, roughly 450 to 500 rounds a minute. Now, if a burst like that hits you at close range, it will more or less cut you in half.
Females were effectively mobile machine gun nests, designed to pour fire on the enemy defending their trenches.
The males are armed with 6-pounder guns like this, a Hotchkiss QF 6-pounder. And the job of these males is to knock out German concrete fortifications.
Originally used on warships, these fired a semi-armour piercing round that weighed 6 pounds, or roughly 2.5 kilograms.
Now we call, in the British Army, we call this a 6-pounder. That's the actual weight of the shell it fires. But the other description would be a 57mm gun. And what that is the diameter of the bore of the barrel. So you can either have a 6-pounder or a 57mm. They're exactly the same thing.
Inside the tank, the gunners, one on each side, use body weight to traverse, aim, and fire the gun.
Fun fact, this is my first time seeing any context to the inside of a tank. Which, I don't know what, I was expecting, but it was not this.
Maximum range was supposed to be 5,000 yards. That's about 4.5 kilometers. But you wouldn't stand a chance of hitting anything at that distance. Actual range was more like 200 yards. That's less than 200 meters. And if the tank was moving, it'd be a lot less.
The 6-pounder gun barrel also had to be shortened by just under a metre, as the longer barrel would plough into the ground as the tank moved. But this didn't impact accuracy to any great degree at short ranges.
While the story of the tank in World War I isn't one of universal success, there are a good many instances where they performed superbly at a tactical level, supporting infantry.
From their first use, in 1916, when a mail tank neutralised a machine gun position that was preventing the infantry securing the village of Flers, at Cambrai in 1917, where the tanks knocked a hole in the Hindenburg line 6 miles wide and 3 miles deep. And during the spectacular British and Commonwealth advances during the last 100 days of the war, which opened the door to ultimate victory.
But before the war ended, there'd be a battlefield encounter that would show the way that wars were to be fought in the future.
In April 1918, British Mark IV Mail encountered a German A7V Sturmpanzer in the first tank versus tank engagement. After some manoeuvring, firing, the Mark IV was able to score 3 hits on the A7V, which killed several crew members and caused the rest to abandon the vehicle.
It's worth noting the Mark IV had to stop in order to fire accurately, and this is probably because the gunners weren't adept at firing on the move. They certainly weren't trained to fire at a moving target, and definitely
Yeah, that could be a problem.
Lessons would be learned. By the time of World War II, the role of the tank has changed. It's not just about supporting infantry, knocking out fixed fortifications. Now, tanks have got to be able to fight other tanks.
Tank and anti-tank guns were designed specifically to destroy enemy armour. They were designed to fire an armour-piercing round, usually at this stage solid shot, at high velocity to punch through the armour of an enemy tank. In response, tank armour was made thicker, and in response to that, guns had to become more powerful to penetrate them. And this went on throughout the war, explaining why there are so many different types of tank designs emerging and falling out of use between the mid-1930s and mid-1940s, and you can see this in our World War II haul.
In the early part of the war, quite a few British tanks, like this Matilda II, like the Valentine, were armed with the 2-pounder tank gun. And this is the round that it fired. It's actually not quite as bad as it looks. This is a high-velocity armour-piercing round, and this will penetrate up to 2 inches of armour, up to about 500 yards. And that actually compares pretty favourably with some of the other weapons of the period, things like the Pak-36, the German anti-tank gun, and the French 25mm. Matilda was really rather loved by her crews. Thick armour, good protection, and she could deal with the enemy tanks of the early war period, things like the Panzer I, II, III, that Italian 1340 over there. The problem starts when bigger, tougher enemy armour starts turning up, and we're talking about things like the Panzer IV. That, I'm afraid, is the point where the poor little 2-pounder has had its day.
With so many British tanks armed with this gun, there was an attempt to make the 2-pounder more effective.
Oh, that cause
This is a piece of kit
that.
called the Little John adapter. It's an extension to the barrel that uses a technique called squeeze bore. This increases the pressure behind the round when it's fired to almost double the velocity at which it leaves the muzzle, increasing its ability to penetrate armour. It was a bit cumbersome to use and required its own ammunition, so it didn't really take off, and the 2-pounder needed to be replaced.
The Matilda was too small and too slow to be upgunned. So after a moment of glory in the Western Desert, Matilda was obsolete by 1942.
However, its contemporary, the Valentine, was able to be upgunned to carry the 6-pounder. A number of Valentines were also converted to carry the 17-pounder anti-tank gun as Valentine Archers, where their effective life as a tank was over.
Of course, there are quite a few examples of tanks being successfully upgunned. I mean, you can think about the Panzer III, the Panzer IV here,
And I suppose probably the most famous is the
Later,
T-34.
AJ. Appreciate you hanging
And
out.
that gets a bigger turret, a bigger gun, and the T-34-76 is transformed into the T-34-85. Now, throughout the war, there is still a major need for tanks to be able to support infantry. Most of the 50,000 odd Shermans that were built were equipped with this. This is the M3 75mm gun. That's a good weapon in many, many ways. It's based on the French 75mm field gun from the First World War.
No shit.
And in terms of supporting infantry, it's very, very good at
Well, that's big.
firing the 75mm high explosive shell. With AP, it can also deal with quite a number of the earlier German tanks. I mean, certainly Panzer III, Panzer IV. Things start to get a bit sticky when it encounters the heavier German armour of the latter part of the war. I'm probably thinking about Panther and Tiger here.
The heavy reliance on the Sherman tank by the US and British armies made this a major issue.
The US Army would eventually upgun their Shermans with a more powerful 76mm gun. But the British Army wanted to get something in place before D-Day. So their solution was to shoehorn the proven 17-pounder anti-tank gun into the Sherman turret.
This was incredibly difficult, as the 17-pounder is a much bigger weapon, and it involved chopping the back off the turret and welding on a bustle. And the breech had to be redesigned to open sideways rather than vertically.
And the crew had to drop from 5 to 4. But the result was the Sherman Firefly, which could fire a 17-pounder armour-piercing round, which will penetrate up to 162mm of armour, up to 1,000 metres. And it is extremely bloody heavy. I really don't know how in the confines of that turret you could load this into the breech of the gun.
Around 2,000 Shermans were upgunned as Fireflies, the British, Commonwealth and Polish units, and deployed as one per troop of conventionally armed tanks. It's a solution famously demonstrated near Caen in July 1944, when a Firefly of the Northamptonshire Yeomanry destroyed 3 Tiger 1s in 12 minutes with 5 rounds.
Now the Tiger itself was built to pack a punch. Tiger was famously designed around the Kampfwagen Kanone 36 tank gun, and that itself was derived from the Flak 36 anti-aircraft gun. That had been used with great success in the early stages of the war in an anti-tank role, because it's got an enormous muzzle velocity and just about a flat trajectory. Now a big gun needs
The
to be mounted
Sherman
on a
Tiger
big
2s
tank.
can destroy 10, but they're always
So
11.
here you have an instance of a proven anti-tank weapon influencing the design and the final size of the vehicle that is mounted in. And this is the round that it fired. This is the 88mm, and this was capable of spoiling the day of lots of Allied tank crew.
I'm feeling really quite privileged to be sitting here in the gunner's seat of Tiger 131.
I could never sit there. I feel so claustrophobic. Like, actually, I feel a little claustrophobic just looking at that. Like, or is there, like, maybe there's more space, but, like, just looking at that, like, I just feel claustrophobic looking at it.
Next to the breech of the KWK 36 gun, the 88. The whole thing here is that as guns improve, naturally so does gunnery. Ranges increase. So in World War I, you're looking at 200 yards maximum to achieve a hit on the target, probably rather less. In World War II, that's going up to, in some cases, over 1,000 yards. Although in combat conditions, it's generally, the average is around about 500 yards for tank-on-tank kill. Things like turret traverse times are improving as well. We're looking at perhaps 15 to 20 seconds for a full 360-degree traverse. We also have improvements in things like gun stabilisation. It won't get to the stage during World War II where it's possible to accurately fire on the move. That's going to happen well post-war. There's also other things. I mean, things like improvements in gun sights, and particularly German tanks, things like the Panther and this Tiger. Magnificent optics, adjustable magnification, and graticules that make it possible to accurately gauge range. And obviously that's extremely important in terms of accurate gunnery.
As tank guns grow bigger and more powerful, their appearance starts to change. Now, this Churchill is mounting a 6-pounder gun, and on the end there's a counterweight. And that's a very simple piece of kit. It's a heavy weight, and all it does is to balance out the gun so that it's easier to elevate and depress manually. Something you do find on a lot of tank guns are fittings like this. Now, this is called a muzzle brake. And what that is, it's all to do with dealing with recoil. Now, remember your Newton's third law, bit of physics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So the shell goes that way, the gun jumps back. If you've ever fired a rifle, you'll know it kicks back into your shoulder. But if you scale that up to something like a tank gun, that can be a big problem, because the amount of force coming back at you is enough to damage the gun and its mountings. Now, what a muzzle brake does, it's just a very simple fitting, but it's got vents at the side facing slightly backwards. When the gun's fired, some of the muzzle blast comes out sideways, as I said, slightly backwards. And odd as it may seem, that is enough to damp down up to 50% of the recoil. The rest of it is dealt with by the hydraulic recoil cylinder on the gun mount itself. World War II is the period when the tank as a weapon system really comes of age. And you've only got to look at the contrast between this early war Matilda I and this late war Comet to understand
That's a big size
the
difference
only thing is that even by the end of the war, we haven't come up with something termed the universal tank. And that's a tank that's capable of fulfilling all the necessary roles, whether it's fighting other tanks or infantry support or whatever.
But the post-war era will be dominated by the main battle tank. Tanks that can engage a variety of targets, from armoured to soft-skin vehicles, infantry, buildings and fortifications.
Inside both this is the Chieftain main battle tank from the 1960s, and later on the Challenger 1 was the Royal Ordnance Factory's L11 120mm gun. It was regarded as the best tank gun in the world when it was introduced, and it certainly brought with it some innovations.
In fact, a Challenger 1 mounting the L11 gun holds the record for the longest tank-on-tank kill, knocking out an Iraqi T-55 at a range of 5,100 metres.
I'm here in the loader operator's position on the left-hand side of the turret of one of the British Army's Chieftain tanks, and this is the breech of the L11 gun. Now, the L11 is a rifled gun, 120mm gun, and it can fire armour-piercing rounds, it can fire high-explosive rounds, it can also fire smoke. Now, the armour-piercing round most commonly used in modern warfare is one of these, and this is APFSDS. What that means is armour-piercing, fin-stabilised, discarding sabot. It's a bit of a mouthful, so we quite often call it a fin round, just for short. What it is, this central bit, is a dart of a very, very dense material, something like tungsten alloy or very often depleted uranium. That is enclosed by a sabot. What that is, that's a jacket that actually guides it down the barrel. When it leaves the barrel, the sabot falls off and the dart continues on to the target.
The dart is travelling at up to 1,800 metres per second, or 4,000 miles an hour, and the effect of this slug of extremely dense material, travelling incredibly fast, produces catastrophic amounts of kinetic energy. The round will penetrate tank armour, and fragments of armour, plus the round itself, will shred just about everything in the target area. Crew, systems, you name it. Depleted uranium is also pyrophoric, meaning that white-hot fragments of the round ignite with air and burn out the vehicle interior. If your vehicle is hit by an APFSDS round, chances are you'll be shredded, incinerated, or both.
Now,
Jesus.
you'll see that this is a very confined space, and owing to the increasing size of modern tank rounds, what we do these days is to split the round and the propellant into two. So you load the round to begin with, and then you load something called a bag charge. And this gives us a bit more flexibility because this is a half bag. So this is what you use with something like a Hesh round, long, low lob. And then this one is obviously drill charges. This is a full bag. So that's the maximum amount of propellant. And that is what you'd use with a fin round with APFSDS, because that's got to have maximum force behind it. Increasing ranges, and we're talking well over 2 kilometres here, brought the need for better technology.
TOGS, the Thermal Observation and Gunnery Site used on Chieftain and Challenger 1, enables enemy assets to be targeted at night.
Can we normalize people when they use acronyms the first time for defining what it actually stands for? Okay, can we make that more normal, please? Because that makes things so much easier to understand.
In poor visibility and at extreme ranges.
It's obviously a great advantage in tank combat to be able to fire on the move. But what you need for that, what's called a fully stabilised gun, took an awful long time to get right. And first, British designers and then Soviet designers came up with a stabilisation system. The stabilisation system uses gyroscopes and servo motors to actually keep the gun straight and level as the tank's moving. And if you couple that with laser rangefinder, say, and a gunnery computer, you have got a weapon, you've got a tank that can fire and hit another tank while both the target tank and the firing tank are moving. When you start looking at modern tank guns like the L30A1 on this Challenger 2 main battle tank, there are even more humps and bumps. Now, to start off with, if you look at the jacket around the barrel, that is thermal cladding. And it's a bit like lagging around a hot water pipe or something like that. What that's all about is if there is some sort of external factor like an icy breeze blowing from one direction or fierce sunlight, it might cause the barrel to warp slightly. Now, this is going to be sub-millimetric, but if you're aiming at a target that might be a few kilometres away, that is enough to make a difference. You then got the big bump in the middle. That's what we call the fume extractor. Now, when the gun fires, the barrel will fill with poisonous fumes. If you open breach, they'll flow back into the crew compartment. That's not very good for the crew. So what the fume extractor is all about, inside it, there's a circle of holes actually drilled down into the barrel. When the round comes up the barrel, the vacuum created pulls all the muck into the fume extractor, and that acts as a reservoir. When the round leaves, it flows out at the end, it's pulled out by vacuum, and you can see this if you watch a tank gun firing. The gun will recoil, come forward, and then there'll be a little puff of smoke out the end. That is the fume extractor venting itself. Then you've got the little cap right at the end of the barrel. Now under that there is a small mirror, and this is what we call the MRS, the muzzle reference system. Now the reason we've got that is that tank guns and sights need to be very precisely aligned, quite obviously.
and they can be knocked out. But using the MRS, the gunner can look through his sights and adjust the sights accordingly so that the gun and the sights are in precise alignment. The Challenger 2 gun can fire APFSDS, it can fire smoke, or it can fire these. This is HESH, High Explosive Squash Head. What this is a dustbin load of HE fired with a half-bag charge and a long, low lob. Now what you quite often use this against is structures, soft-skin vehicles, but you can use it against enemy armour as well.
A HESH round impacts on the armour of the vehicle and detonates. The transmitted force blasts a very nasty and destructive scab of metal off the inside of the armour and sends this flying into the vehicle interior.
The only thing about HESH is it has to be fired from a rifled gun. And that's why the British Army, almost uniquely at the moment, still fits rifled ordnance to its tanks. Everybody else has gone smoothbore because you don't need a rifled barrel for APFSDS, you don't need it for high explosive anti-tank. I mean, what rifling's all about is they're grooves cut down the barrel. They describe a quarter turn on the way down, and what that does is it spins the round, and it makes it more accurate, more stable in flight.
However, it's expected...
I don't think I quite follow the logistics on how the round spinning would make it more accurate. I don't quite understand that.
The British Army's next generation MBT, Challenger 3, will mount a smoothbore gun when it enters service later this decade, finally bringing the British Army into line with other NATO countries.
In this video, we've seen how the firepower of the tank has become far more accurate, more devastating, much more sophisticated. The science of tank gunnery has come a huge way since the Mark I, the First World War, almost sort of point-and-go techniques, right the way up to that long-range gunnery feat achieved by the Challenger 1 in the First Gulf War.
That makes a lot of sense.
As battlefield technology evolves, so will the need to come up with even more new and ingenious methods of destroying enemy targets if the tank is to remain relevant for another century.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and don't forget to subscribe.
That was very informative. I went from knowing jack shit about tanks to knowing something more about them. That was definitely enlightening. Definitely enlightening. I wasn't quite ready for the learning about tanks today, but I didn't hate it. I'm gonna switch over to the other video I had loaded. Just get this loaded up here real quick. No, I'm gonna grab this video too. Do not start autoplaying. I swear I will end you if you do. I said don't autoplay! Okay. And so now we got the Fat Electricians, German tanks versus American crop duster, Bazooka Charlie. I have no idea what to expect.
Zach from Starship Troopers, one of my favorite characters in cinematic history.
By the way, should I watch... I know I've seen part of it, but should I watch the entirety of Starship Troopers?
History and philosophy teacher that goes into combat when war starts and leads his former students. Well, I found the real life version and it's even cooler than the movie.
No? Okay.
Today we're talking about Charles Carpenter. The Germans referred to him as the Mad Major, while his men knew him as Bazooka Charlie. A 29-year-old history teacher from Moline, Illinois, who would join the United States Army Air Corps after Pearl Harbor was attacked and his younger brother, who was a fighter pilot in the Philippines, was captured by the Japanese. Through a series of events, he would become one of the United States Army's first liaison pilots, a new experimental program where these men were tasked with flying the L-4 Grasshopper, basically a glorified crop duster with fabric wings and what amounts to a lawnmower blade sticking out of the front. They would fly out over the battlefield and use their altitude to spot enemy positions and call in accurate artillery fire. While this job was extremely valuable, dangerous, and did have a humongous impact on the battlefield, it didn't have the direct impact that Charles Carpenter wanted. So Carpenter decided he was going to mount 6 bazookas on the wings of his crop duster and begin flying combat sorties, quite literally dive-bombing German tanks. He would later perfect this technique and use it to sway the entire Battle of Arikor, which is the largest tank battle on the Western Front in all of World War II. And we're going to get into everything right after a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by World of Warship Legends, the first and probably only video game I'm ever gonna be in.
Good game, everyone. That was a great battle.
Now, previously I was only available on PC, but to celebrate the Navy's 250th birthday, I am now available on consoles. You're gonna unlock me, the battleship, the USS Texas with an American flag paint job, and a bunch of other freebies. And that deal is available for absolutely everybody, even if you already play, from now until November 28th, 2025. And if you're new to the game, you're gonna get a bunch of extra freebies on top of that. The game is free, it's pretty easy to play, and it's one of the only games that I actually do play. You get to captain your own ship in naval warfare, being historically accurate ships like the USS Texas, the USS Iowa, or the USS Enterprise. And it's not all just American ships. You could be other historic ships from different nations. You could be the Japanese Yamato. You could be the German Bismarck. I mean, I don't know why you would. They're both at the bottom of the ocean right now, which seems like a bad strategy if you want to win, but whatever, you do you. And it's not just influencers like me that you can unlock to be the captains of your ship. You can unlock real captains from history. You can actually have Willis Ching Lee be the captain of the USS Washington or any other ship that you want. So yeah, go check out World of Warships. Use my link down below. If you use it before November 28th, you're gonna unlock the battleship, the USS Texas with an American flag paint job, and a bunch of other freebies. Let's get back to the video. Our story begins August 29th, 1912. Charles Carpenter is born. He is the oldest of 6 kids. He has 2 brothers and 3 sisters. He grows up in Illinois, and like pretty much every other World War II hero we talk about, he grows up dirt poor. You guys know the drill. Unfortunately, the young Charles's dad was not that great of a guy. He had an alcohol problem, he had a gambling problem, and we don't really know how old Charles was when this happened, but in his childhood, his dad would end up losing their 1,000-acre farm in a gambling game, and he would walk out of their lives forever, abandoning his family, his wife, and all 6 kids. Now, something like that happening would absolutely destroy most people, but Charles Carpenter is the main character, and without a positive male role model in his life, he turns to books, he turns to literature, and reads all the great books he can find. And that becomes his positive male role model. That's how he learns how to be a man. And
honestly, I completely understand when you don't, taking that tactic, when you don't have any, like, good role model for, like, parents. And I kind of hate that I relate to that. I really do. I hate that. I hate that so much.
It works. He's super hardworking, he's very intelligent, does great in school, and he's a 3-sport athlete playing football, basketball, and track. Quote, "My creed, I have resolved to exert all of my efforts towards being a nobler and stronger fellow, a gentleman, a scholar, a friend, and a real man. To the best of my ability, I will ever strive for self-control, self-improvement, freedom, wisdom, courage, generosity, truth, and the true nobility before God and men. I will be better. Charles Carpenter." Okay, he wrote that at 17 years old after his dad had lost everything and abandoned him and his family. Okay, the dude knew he was the main character all along. For high school, he gets a full-ride scholarship to Roosevelt Military Academy, and then after that, he gets a full-ride scholarship to Center College in Kentucky, both for football and track. While he's there, he joins the Civilian Training Corps, which is kind of like an old version of ROTC, where you get to become a military officer when you do classes during college. Basically, he has to go off to 2 weeks of training every summer, all 4 years of college, and then once he graduates from college and finishes the program, he's offered a spot as a second lieutenant in the Army Reserves as a pilot. So that's what he does. He goes off to college, studies history, studies philosophy, decides he wants to be a history teacher. He wants to be able to go into a classroom full of kids and find the kids that are like him and be their strong male role model that he never had. And that's what he does for years. And when he's not teaching history, he's a flight instructor. But being the history guy, he can also kind of see the future, because history is the best predictor of the future, and he sees all the tensions and everything rising in Europe.
History
and
is
in his
a
personal
lesson.
journal in the 1930s, he would write, and I quote, "Life is far crueler than death, and nations are feverishly preparing to slaughter again."
And if you don't learn from history, we are damned to repeat it. Unfortunately.
So he knew that World War II was coming, probably a lot sooner than most other people did, but he's one man. He's a history teacher in Moline, Illinois. What can he do? So he just keeps living his life. He keeps teaching history in the day, keeps teaching pilots at night, and then on the weekends he would go to the next town over to go to the dance hall to try to find a wife, a big dance hall called the Coliseum. One night at the Coliseum, he picks a lovely young lady out of the crowd. Elda, also known as Bunny, asks her to dance. They dance all night. They have a great time. She's awestruck that this perfect 10 of a man, he's got a job, he's athletic, he's handsome, is hitting on her. And at the end of the night, he asks her, "Hey, could I take you out on a real date?" And she wasn't very confident, and she panics, and she's like, I have a date with my girlfriend scheduled for that night already. So Charles Carpenter's like, "Oh, okay, I guess," and that was the end of it. Bunny spends the next weeks and months just kicking herself in her own ass for shooting down this perfect 10 of a man, and then eventually, after a couple of months, they run into each other at the Coliseum again. They dance all night, have a great time, and Charles Carpenter shoots his shot again. They go out on a date, and 3 months later, they were married. According to Bunny, and I quote, "We were so in love, we couldn't eat." Fast forward, Charles Carpenter is living the American dream. Despite his rough childhood, he's college educated, he's a high school history teacher, living his dream job, he's happily married, his wife is pregnant with their first child, and then in 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. And at essentially the same time, they also attack the Philippines, where his brother, the fighter pilot, is currently stationed, and they destroy his brother's plane in the opening attack. His brother's now a POW, all of his former students are getting drafted and going off to war, and he could probably get away from the draft. Being at home as a teacher is an important job. He could probably get an exemption, but that's not the man that Charles Carpenter is, so he volunteers to go off and joins the military too at 29 years old. Now, because Carpenter's already college educated, he's already an Army officer, he's already a flight instructor, the Army determines they're not going to send him off into combat. They're going to send him to Miami, where he's going to be an instructor and teach other people how to be officers and how to fly planes. And while that might be a dream job to most people, being able to stay stateside, safe, healthy, happy, it's not really what Carpenter wanted, but that's what the Army told him to do, so he's going to do it to the best of his ability. So in early 1942, he gets in his car in Illinois and drives all the way to Miami, and the road trip there is absolutely crazy. Pearl Harbor just happened, and they're already rationing gasoline. They're rationing rubber for tires. They're rationing absolutely everything. At one point, Charles picks up a hitchhiker, and that hitchhiker explains to him that he's a merchant marine and his ship had been sunk by a German U-boat, and he's trying to make his way home to his parents because his parents think that he's dead. And the entire thing is just surreal to him because he's read and studied so much history, and he realizes during this road trip that he's now living through history. So he gets to Miami, starts doing his job, and it's not his thing. I mean, he's good at it. He can train people how to do stuff. He's a teacher. He knows how to teach. He knows what he's talking about, but he just feels wrong about the fact that he's teaching somebody how to go off and fight a war when he's never gone off and fought a war himself. So he decides that's what he needs to do. The problem is he's too valuable where he's at. They're not going to let him just change his orders and go join a normal aviation unit and abandon this teaching job because he's the best man for that job. The only way he's going to get out of these teaching orders is if he volunteers for something so dangerous that it's a volunteer-only basis, and he does exactly that. He volunteers to be a glider pilot. Okay, what is a glider? They were used on D-Day. They're a really big deal. Not a lot of people have heard about them. It's basically a giant kite that's shaped like a plane. Ken, I know what you're thinking. Why on earth wouldn't you just, I don't know, fly another plane into combat? Why are you going to tow a plane-sized kite behind you? Well, you gotta remember it's World War II. Raw materials are scarce. They're rationing everything. We can't make planes fast enough. We need more planes. More planes isn't an option, so this is the next best thing, to make a giant kite-shaped plane and tow it behind a C-47 into combat, and then cut the ropes, and they're gonna glide into the battlefield and have a controlled crash landing. And I think we can all agree, pretty crazy proposition for a military job, so obviously not a ton of volunteers, so when Charles Carpenter does volunteer, he gets accepted pretty much immediately. He gets shipped off into the glider training pipeline. First they send him to Tennessee, then they send him to Arkansas, then they send him to South Carolina. He's literally flying a giant kite. They're cutting the ropes, and he's practicing his crash landings over and over and over again. And this goes on for months and months and months. And you gotta remember, Charles Carpenter is a historian. He's always thinking the big picture. He's always known that these gliders were a bandage fix. They were just something that had to be done. They were not the ideal scenario. On top of that, they also have a very specific niche application of when and if these are ever going to be used. So he kind of starts to feel like maybe he's wasting his time, because the longer this goes on, the more planes America is building, and maybe they're not going to have to use these gliders at all, and maybe he's just wasting his time. And then one day on the bulletin board, there's another list for volunteers for a different crazy flight program called a liaison pilot. Now, conceptually, this job is nothing new. It's basically recon. It's just get up really high, be able to spot the enemy, report what the enemy's doing, back to your chain of command. Back in the day, you'd send scouts up on the high ground. Back in World War I, you had hot air balloons. And now, in World War II, they're going to have liaison pilots. Why is that dangerous? Because they're flying an L4 Grasshopper, okay, which is literally just a J3 Piper Cub, which is like the most mass-produced trainer plane at this point in time. Like, if you were a pilot, you first learned how to fly a plane on a J3 Piper Cub. It's literally the Model T of airplanes. It's got fabric wings, like an 80 horsepower engine, and its top speed is like 85 miles an hour. It's basically a papier-mâché plane with a lawnmower blade sticking out of the front. And not only is it slow, it has no offensive or defensive capabilities. It can't engage the enemy, and it can't defend itself when it gets engaged. So literally, you're just going up in the air, getting eyes on the enemy, and hoping they decide not to shoot at you. And the reason the Army wants to use this feeble aircraft is because it's super easy to fly on, and you can land it in a random field. You don't need a runway, and you can take off and land in like 300 feet, which is actually where it got the name the L4 Grasshopper, because it's literally just a J3 Piper Cub. The Army's got to give it a different name. When the J3 Piper Cub was going through military testing, they were landing it in random fields, and this green little plane would hit the ground and skip and skid to a halt, and one of the generals said, it looks like a damn grasshopper. And
yeah, it's like, you're just hoping either A, they don't shoot you, or 2, they didn't see you. And those odds are not good.
And that's how it got the name the L4 Grasshopper. So these liaison pilots are going to be operating like a mile behind the front line, taking off from a random field, loitering over the battlefield for hours, calling in artillery, and reporting back enemy troop movements to their chain of command. Basically, liaison pilots in the L4 Grasshopper is the world's first version of a recon drone, except for, you know, the whole point of a drone is you can go do dangerous shit and not put your men in harm's way, but that's not really an option here. And Charles Carpenter is like, sounds great. Whatever gets me into the battle, sign me up. And I mean, to be fair, he had already volunteered to crash land a giant kite with no engine, so now he's flying what amounts to a kite with an engine, so I guess it is an upgrade. From here, he gets shipped off to Texas to learn how to fly the L4 Grasshopper, which he already knows how to do because he's been a pilot instructor forever, passes that with flying colors, then they send him off to Fort Sill, home of the artillery, where he gets to learn how to call in artillery while he's inside of his plane. Okay, in timeout, because I need you guys to understand how insane this job is. I don't want you to think I'm pumping up flying a crop duster like it's some incredible job, because I know it's not as glamorous or as glorious as being a fighter pilot. This job is fucking nuts. Okay, A, he's alone. alone, almost always. The plane literally isn't big enough to carry 2 people in it and be fast enough to not get shot at. So he is alone inside of a plane. Inside of the plane, it is his job while 2,000 feet above the ground, traveling 85 miles an hour in a noisy ass cockpit, being propelled by a lawnmower blade, to be able to look down, spot the enemy, and call in artillery, okay? And you're thinking like, oh, you just pick up the phone and say, send the artillery. No, he has to be able to figure out while moving in one direction where the enemy is on the grid, like get their coordinates, and then call that in relation to him as he's moving, and the enemy's also potentially moving as well. And he's trying to do math and trajectory problems while flying a fucking plane.
That's a nightmare.
The entire job is literally fly a plane, hope to God you don't get shot down, and while you're flying the plane, have the world's shittiest math quiz, and if you fail, you or your buddies die. So is being a liaison pilot as glamorous as being a fighter pilot? No, absolutely not. But I would argue that they have way bigger balls. I mean, as an outsider looking in, which job would you rather have? Option A, you could be a fighter pilot, basically take up what amounts to a hot rod covered in machine guns and zip around the battlefield shooting at the enemy. Or B, you could take up your grandpa's crop duster, traveling at the speed of smell with no weapons to fire at the enemy or defend yourself, and the entire time that you're loitering over the battlefield hoping you don't get shot down, you're doing Sudoku puzzles with life or death consequences for you and your buddies. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to articulate to you that liaison pilots are highly underrated. These are quite literally Iron Men flying paper planes. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Charles Carpenter completes his training, gets his L-wings,
So more or less, you're saying they have balls of steel.
officially becoming a liaison pilot. From here, he gets assigned to the 4th Armored Division in Patton's 3rd Army. So he goes out with the 4th Armored Division. They're training out in the deserts of California, getting ready to go into theater, and very quickly he becomes the top liaison pilot in the entire 4th Armored Division. He is essentially now the man in charge of all the other liaison pilots, both because he's extremely capable, but also because he's like in his early 30s at this point in time. He's an older dude by standards. He's more mature, he's a teacher, he's college educated, he's just the right guy for the job. Because of this, he essentially becomes the personal pilot for the general of the 4th Armored Division, John Shirley Wood, a man who's described as being broad in the shoulders and even broader in the waist. And remember, the L4 Grasshopper, not really meant to have 2 people inside of it, and the general is a big boy. Charles Carpenter, also a pretty big guy. They are way overweight when he's flying this general around. So not only does he get used to flying a over-encumbered L4 Grasshopper, but he also ends up becoming really good friends with the general, again, because he's one of the only older guys around. Everybody else is a 19-year-old kid. He's super well-read. The general's probably super well-read. They become homies. And both of these things are going to save his ass later on.
Oh boy.
Early 1944, Charles Carpenter and the rest of the 4th Armored Division head off to Great Britain. They're training there, they're getting ready. That goes on for a couple of months. D-Day happens in June of 1944, and by July of 1944, Charles Carpenter and the rest of the 4th Armored Division go into France. Right out of the gate, he's doing his job exactly how he's supposed to. He's going up, he's doing recon, he's calling in artillery, he's being the personal pilot for the general whenever he needs it, and this goes on for a couple of weeks, and the entire time, every mission, it starts to eat at him more and more. He feels like he's not doing enough. He's not going out there and confronting the enemy. He's just loitering above the battlefield. He's cutting himself and his contribution short. And then he gets his chance to confront the enemy in person on August 1st, 1944, outside of a French town known as Avranches. I want to be clear, we don't know the exact context of how this unfolded, but we do know that he was in a Jeep by himself conducting forward reconnaissance, looking for an empty field to land his plane and all the other L4 Grasshoppers. Now, the fact that he's going out by himself in a Jeep to look for a place to land his Grasshoppers closer to the front line tells me that he's probably been up in the sky conducting reconnaissance and come to the conclusion that there's no Germans in the area, so they're gonna move forward. That's just where my head is at, and probably his too. While he's in his Jeep looking for a new operational base for all of his L4 Grasshoppers, he comes up on a bunch of American tanks and American infantry, and they are in a firefight with the Germans. So he hops out of the Jeep, runs up to some of the infantry, asks what's going on. They're telling him there's a ton of Germans in the area, they're pinned down, they can't punch through into this town. And this is where I'm inferring something. I'm assuming he knows that that's bullshit. That's not a possibility. He's probably been up in the air conducting recon for days. He knows that there's no massive German element here, so he thinks that this is just some kind of German trick or some last stand. But what we know for sure is that he then proceeds to run up to the nearest Sherman tank whose commander isn't there for one reason or another, hops in the turret with the 50 cal, and yells down to the crew, "Let's go." He's an officer, they're lower enlisted, they listen to him. They drive straight into the Germans, firing the 75mm cannon on this Sherman with the other tanks and infantry following behind them, and they start clearing the town block by block, and every time they round a corner, he yells down to the crew, "Let it go," and they fire another round, forcing the Germans to retreat further, block after block, slowly clearing this entire town. As they round the last corner on the last block in this town, they're about to take the entire thing. Through the smoke and chaos of the battle, he sees a tank, and he yells down to the crew, "Let it go," and as soon as the words leave his mouth, he sees through the smoke that it's another Sherman tank. He has the gut-wrenching oh shit moment as time slows down, and before he can say a word, the gun fires. And he watches in slow motion as his tank fires on another American Sherman tank that's got a bulldozer blade attached to the front of it. And thank God the shell only hits the bulldozer blade, blows it off the tank, and nobody's hurt.
Guess what? What? Fuck you!
Valid.
So that's great news. Nobody got hurt. Also great news, he just helped break through the German lines by leading this massive offensive into a French town. Bad news, the other tank commander who just got his bulldozer blade shot off crawls out of his tank and starts walking over to Carpenter's tank, rightfully furious and pissed off. And when he gets there, he's expecting to chew out, I don't know, another tank commander. And what he finds is a liaison pilot that's not even in this unit, that's not supposed to be there, that just commanded one of his tanks to shoot at his tank.
It's only my third day out here. I don't know.
So he goes from being furious to absolutely mega pissed, and to be fair, he's kind of justified. He immediately orders Charles Carpenter get arrested and says that he's going to do everything he can to make sure he faces the firing squad for fratricide.
What the?
Luckily, his homie, General Shirley Wood, finds out that his pilot and buddy has been arrested. He goes, springs him out of jail, but it's the wrong chain of command, and he doesn't have enough sway to be able to get rid of the potential court-martial that Charles Carpenter is now facing. So, at the very least, he's not going to be facing the firing squad, but he's still potentially
in some
looking
hot
at
water.
getting dishonorably discharged from the military. So, General Shirley Wood takes the case to the next hire, somebody that can solve this issue. His buddy from West Point, General Patton. General Patton hears about what happened. He says something along the lines of, and I quote, "That's the type of fighting man I want in my army," and gets rid of the court-martial and wipes his slate clean altogether. Now that part we know happened for sure, but I also believe that this is the point where Charles Carpenter was not only given a second chance, but I believe Patton also gave him the Bronze Star with V device and promoted him to Major at this point as well.
See, now that's some bullshit.
Unfortunately, I can't present that to you as 100% fact because I cannot find any of his medal citations or promotions anywhere in the National Archives. I'm assuming he's in that 80% majority that lost all their personnel records in the fire in 1973. But I believe at this point, Patton did award him the Bronze Star with V device and promote him to Major, which is absolutely on brand for General Patton.
Bazooka
All right, so had a little oopsies. Everything worked out all right. He's back in the saddle. He's not in trouble. He's going out on missions. Everything's back to normal. And then there's a rumor going around in the liaison pilot community that apparently somebody somewhere on the Western Front mounted a bazooka onto the wing of their L4 Grasshopper, fired it, and the plane didn't blow up. It didn't catch the wing on fire. It worked out. Okay, now bear in mind, this is a rumor. This is 15 degrees removed. Some guy told another guy that apparently this happened. But when Charles Carpenter hears that it happened, he's like, I'm fucking doing it. So he goes to his chain of command, asks permission, is like, hey, I heard this was possible. I want to give it a try. His chain of command, being cool as shit, is like, look, I'm not saying you're allowed to do that. I'm also not saying that if you did, I'm going to stop you, which he takes as the green light, and he does it. Okay, bear in mind, this is a rumor. He heard from a guy who heard from a guy that this is theoretically possible, and he's going to go out there and actually figure out how to do it. There's no YouTube tutorial. There's no how-to. There's no pictures of how it was done. He's just going to go out there and figure out how to mount a bazooka onto his plane. Which, to be fair, doesn't sound like it would be that complicated until you actually start to think about the fact that this is borderline approaching rocket science, right? I mean, you can't just be strapping big, heavy metal tubes onto the wings of aircrafts and expect it to not interfere with, I don't know, aerodynamics, weight distribution, all the shit that goes into, I don't know, keeping a plane in the fucking sky.
That's simply not possible.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
And if you don't believe me, go make a paper airplane, throw it across the room, watch it go,
I'm
and
happy
then
you like
pick
my
it up,
pun.
strap some weights to each wing, and throw it again and see how different it flies.
Oh! Oh, man, it slipped out of my hand.
man, what a whiff.
Regardless, he's a smart guy. He figures it out. You can't literally mount the bazooka on the wing because they're fabric wings, so he mounts it on the wing strut, and
Was
then he
intentional,
mounts it
though.
so that the actual weight of the bazooka with the shell is behind the rear tires and behind the pilot, because the center of gravity on these Piper Cub planes is actually behind the pilot already, so he's using his own body weight to counteract the weight of these bazookas.
Yes, science!
So he ends up mounting one bazooka on each side of the plane, does a test run, it flies okay. Then he runs electrical wires into the cockpit on a panel where he can fire each bazooka individually or both at once. Goes up on a test run, fires the bazookas, doesn't light the wings on fire, doesn't blow them out of the sky. He's actually able to semi-accurately shoot these bazookas. He lands, and it's like the holy shit, that actually worked, at which point he has a wonderful idea. You know what's better than 2 bazookas?
Double it!
That's right, 4 bazookas. So he mounts 4 bazookas on his plane, goes up, does a test run, it works, comes back down, lands. You know what's better than 4 bazookas? 6 bazookas. Goes up, does a test run, it works again, comes back down, and lands. You know what's better than 6 bazookas on an L4 Grasshopper?
Here I come.
An L4 Grasshopper with 6 bazookas and a dope-ass paint job where he names his plane Rosie the Rocketer after Rosie the Riveter. From here, he takes his Grunts and Crafts project into combat. From here, things get a little bit fuzzy because, again, a lot of the documentation was probably lost in a fire in 1973, and there probably wasn't a lot of great documentation taken at the time to begin with because, again, he's a one-man show. If there's not a witness to verify whatever he said happened, they can't really prove it. They can't officially say that it happened.
Well, and also, to be fair, they didn't necessarily say he could do it or he was allowed to, but they also didn't say he couldn't. So I can understand that they weren't exactly keeping their eyes exactly on this little project to know for certain.
But what we do know is outside of Sens, France, there was some German tanks and some German armored cars that were now apparently on fire and blown up. We don't know if they were from his bazookas or from him calling in artillery or a combination of the two. I like to think it was a combination of the two. So Charles Carpenter, after presumably destroying a German convoy by himself and or with the help of artillery, decides, you know what, I'm gonna go land my plane in a field next to this burning convoy and inspect it and see what happened. I wanna see how good these bazookas are performing. So that's what he does. Lands his plane in the field, grabs a gun, goes out there to inspect it, finds 6 surviving Germans and takes all 6 of them as prisoner, and then proceeds to put bullets in the engine blocks of all the remaining vehicles that weren't burning yet. Okay, do you understand how ridiculous and gangster this is from the German perspective, okay? Because at this point in time, the German ideology was, if you see an American spotter plane, if you see a Grasshopper up in the sky, they don't have guns. They can't really hurt us. They can just call in artillery and have that rain down on our heads. So the strategy for them at the time was, if you see it, hide from it, don't shoot at it and give away your position, because he's going to call in artillery. Best case scenario, you shoot down a $2,000 plane and take out one guy, and he dumps artillery on your entire unit. It's a bad trade, so usually they just ignore him. So these Germans are sitting there in this convoy and they're like, it's just a spotter plane, ignore it. Oh, it's getting pretty close. Oh shit, it's diving on us, and then it starts shooting bazookas at you and calling in artillery, destroys your entire convoy. Then the pilot proceeds to land in the field next to you and get out of the plane like dad coming home from work and capture you as prisoner. From here, word spreads like wildfire. There's some crazy ass major out there somewhere on the Western Front flying a crop duster around shooting bazookas at Germans. From here, people start calling him the Mad Major, Bazooka Charlie, and he pretty much gets told, I mean, do whatever you want. You can call in artillery, you can shoot bazookas at people. Remember, he's good buddies with the top general. He's the only guy doing this. It seems to be effective. Why get in his way? Let him keep blowing up Germans.
Let him cook!
Works out. So that's what he's doing. He's just going up in the air, calling on artillery when he sees fit, shooting bazookas when he sees fit. Everything's going great. And during this time, he really refines the method, okay? He kind of figures out as close as you can how to accurately aim these bazookas. I mean, at the end of the day, it's basically a giant bottle rocket. The bazooka's gonna do what the bazooka wants to do, but he kind of gets a feel for where they usually go on average. He's got markings on his windshield inside the cockpit for where the bazooka should land. On top of that, he refines how he does his attack runs. He comes in at like 800 feet, does this corkscrew maneuver, goes down, drops to 300 feet, levels out, fires his bazookas, and then dives straight up, literally pulling G's in a fabric plane. And again, at this point in time, we have no idea how many other missions he ran, how many trucks or armored vehicles or tanks that he he took out. On top of that, even if he did take out tanks, not many people would believe him. And that's because at this point in time, bazookas weren't very successful against German tanks. German armor was incredibly thick, and a bazooka, more often than not, even if you scored a direct hit, was not going to penetrate the front or side armor of a German Panther or a German Tiger tank. But what most people didn't realize at the time, he's not shooting at a German Tiger tank from the front or the side, he's shooting at it from the top, like an early version of a javelin missile, literally hitting the tank at its weakest possible point, because no engineer could have ever foreseen, what if somebody was flying above you with a fucking bazooka? At no point in the German engineering process did any of the engineers say, yeah, but what if a crazy history teacher from Illinois in a crop duster covered in bazookas develops the pro gamer move? Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you it's not only possible for Bazooka Charlie to take out a German tank with his crop duster, it's probable. The only problem is it's one of those things you're going to have to see to believe, and he's a one-man show, so nobody's seen it but him. Yet. All right, September 19th, 1944, the Battle of Ericourt, right outside of Nancy, France. It is the largest armored battle on the Western Front in all of World War II. The Germans have approximately 262 tanks and armored vehicles, and the Americans have approximately 140 Sherman tanks. The Germans have the upper hand, but per usual, the Americans have air superiority. Problem, it's foggy as shit and the planes can't fly. Regardless, Charles Carpenter goes up anyways. Under the cover of the fog, the Germans start advancing, and after about an hour of loitering over the battlefield, Charles Carpenter finds a break in the fog, and what he sees is a German column advancing, and there's 6 soldiers pinned down at this watering point. It's the only place to get fresh water, and they were filling up water tanks for the rest of the unit. Bazooka Charlie sees what's unfolding, immediately takes action, goes into his corkscrew, dives down on the first tank, fires his first 2 bazookas, both of them are a miss. Pulls up, circles back around, does his corkscrew maneuver again, dives again, fires 2 bazookas, hits the lead tank, the crew has to bail out. And the 6 guys that were getting water are watching this entire thing unfold, and they are the first people to ever see Bazooka Charlie take out an enemy tank with a bazooka strapped to a crop duster, something that nobody would have thought was possible.
Holy fucking shit.
And Bazooka Charlie's still got 2 more bazookas fresh in the tank, pulls up again, circles back around, does his corkscrew again, dives on another tank, scores a direct hit. The Germans have no fucking idea what's going on. There's just a tiny little plane spawning out of the fog, taking out all of their tanks. They think it's some type of new weapon or an ambush or something crazy is going on, so they panic and retreat. The water crew escapes unscathed. They later confirm that he did in fact take out 2 enemy tanks, giving him his first 2 confirmed tank kills. He then flies back to base, has his ground crew reload the bazookas, and goes back up, fires all 6 bazookas again, goes back, reloads the bazookas again, goes back up, fires them all again. He fired no less than 16 bazooka rounds that day. Bear in mind, again, we have no idea how successful he was overall because he's a one-man show and he had to have witnesses to confirm stuff, but by the end of the day, he had ground confirmation from multiple other people that he had for sure destroyed 2 German Panther tanks, 2 armored vehicles, and at least 12 ground troops. But his impact on the overall battle was so much bigger than that because, again, the fog cover was preventing America from having air superiority, meaning that the Germans had a humongous upper hand. But Charles Carpenter going out in the fog, preventing them from advancing, throwing the Germans off their game, kept them on their heels long enough for the fog to lift, and by the time they realized what the fuck was going on, and there was one crazy guy crop duster, America had regained air superiority and flipped the entire battle on its head. By the end of the Battle of Ericourt, America had lost 30 tanks. The Germans had lost over 200 tanks and armored vehicles. After the Battle of Ericourt, the legend of Bazooka Charlie goes from being a legend within the ranks of Patton's Third Army to being a legend back home. He is in newspaper articles absolutely all over the place. Personally, he doesn't really care for the attention. He doesn't really like the notoriety. He even writes back home to his wife Bunny and says, "Hey, don't talk to the press. I don't want the attention." In an interview, he even told a reporter, and I quote, "Some people around here think I'm nuts, but I just believe that if we're going to fight this war, we have to get on with it 60 minutes an hour, 24 hours in a day." In addition to his newfound notoriety, he also has to deal with the fact that the Germans have caught on to his battle strategy and they have changed their tactics to ignoring spotter planes, to shooting absolutely everything they have at them all the time. Regarding that, he told a reporter, and I quote, "Word must be getting around among those to watch out for cubs with bazookas on them. Every time I show up now, they shoot everything they have. They never used to bother cubs. Bazookas must be bothering them a bit. Despite that, Bazooka Charlie goes out and continues to do Bazooka Charlie things, keeps going out on missions, keeps shooting his bazookas, keeps calling in artillery. And again, I reiterate for like the 15th time, we don't know how many enemy tanks and armored vehicles he took out during this time period because, again, he's a one-man show and everything has to have multiple eyewitnesses to be confirmed. Despite that, over the next month in October of 1944, he manages to bag 4 German tank kills confirmed, 2 of which were the German Tiger heavy tank, the baddest tank of World War II. The other 2 were allegedly Panther tanks, one of which was leading an...
I'm really happy that we watched the a little bit about tank video the other day or earlier, because some of the little context here actually is really nice, because I have a little bit of a visual of what these things actually looked like when it comes to the tanks.
An entire column of tanks down a narrow road with ditches on either side, and Charles Carpenter dived on the lead tank, took it out, and then called in artillery and destroyed the entire column. Bazooka Charlie continues with his antics all through October, November, December, January. Again, documentation's not that great, but some accounts claim as many as 14 confirmed tank kills, as well as over 20 armored vehicles and countless enemy machine gun positions and ground troops. And somewhere along the line, he is also awarded a Silver Star and an Air Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster. But by February of 1945, he's hurting. He's got this massive lump on his neck. He has no idea what it is. He's extremely fatigued and tired, and he ends up getting hospitalized with battle fatigue initially. Army doctors don't know what to make of this lump on his neck. They send him off to Paris. He gets surgery, gets this massive lump removed, and he gets told that he has Hodgkin's lymphoma. They try to give him radiation treatment, but the Hodgkin's lymphoma is so advanced that they basically tell him, you've got a year, maybe 2 years to live. He's released from the army and sent back home. From here, he's reunited with the love of his life, Bunny, and his daughter, Carol, and he figures he's got 2 years left. He might as well make the most of it. He buys an Airstream trailer, and they tour the entire American West, and he gets to see all of the country that he fought for. Fast forward early 2000s, his daughter, Carol, is now in her 60s, and it's the early days of the internet, and she gets on the internet one day, and she's reading on war forums, and she finds a thread about her dad, and it's people talking about this crazy guy named Bazooka Charlie that supposedly mounted bazookas onto a crop duster and eliminated a bunch of German tanks. But because there's such a lack of documentation and everything else, all the comments are doubting the validity of this story and nobody believes it. So she gets in this forum and she starts posting pictures that she has of her dad in theater, and she starts reading all of the letters that he had written back home to her mom, Bunny, and she helps validate this story and it becomes a known fact. She then, with some help of some other people in the aviation community, goes on to write a book about it. And in one of the pictures that she has of her dad posing next to his plane, Rosie the Rocketer, you can actually read the serial number on the plane, and aviation people track down Rosie the Rocketer and find her in a museum in Austria. They buy the plane, bring it back home, and restore Rosie the Rocketer to her wartime paint job. And Carol's daughter, a graphic designer, gets to actually paint the old paint job of her grandfather on the plane. But that's not even the best part. The best part is that after Charles and Bunny and Carol got to tour the American West in their Airstream trailer, Charles felt great. So they went back home and he still felt fine. So Charles went back to work being a history teacher, changing the world one classroom at a time. And a year went by and he was still doing fine. And another year and another year and another year. And Charles lived an additional 22 years after he was given a 1-year death sentence. He would finally succumb to Hodgkin's disease in 1966 at the age of 53, which is still a premature, tragic death. But the silver lining is he got to live an additional 22 years like he was dying. And I like to think Bazooka Charlie, of all people, was able to cram a lot of life into that 22 years under those conditions. And that's the best ending I could possibly give you. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out. Carol, if you're watching this, I really hope you enjoyed it. I tried to do your dad justice. He's a humongous
Looks like
badass.
Kevin
So are
Bacon.
you for all the work you did telling his story. And I tried to get a hold of you but couldn't. But if you do see this, I would love nothing more than to buy you a first-class plane ticket out to San Antonio and have you on my podcast, and we can talk more about your dad. Thanks.
Bazooka Bacon. that was a trip. And I'm really happy that had a whole like wholesome ending. With the whole being able to get the plane, get a restored paint job and all that. But my heart just feels really full with just hearing that. Alright. So do I have time for another video, or do I have to keep that commitment? Oh shit, they're already on their way here. I guess I don't have time for another video. Son of a bitch. Alright, that's fine. The plane was found in Austria is great. Yeah, I was expecting Austria to be where it was. But I unfortunately do have some commitments I have to keep, so I am gonna have to end stream. I appreciate all y'all that hung out today, because I know I've been gone for like a few weeks. I don't even know how long it's been. I don't want to look because I'll probably feel really guilty. Next week I will be starting Halo 2, or I should be, assuming it doesn't get double booked. And maybe I don't know how long I'm gonna be gone, but potentially later tonight I might go finally watch that episode of the Unsubscribe podcast with Buffalo. Might stream that in Discord, because I know I'm not gonna have a good time watching it. Just no, I silently judge me. Look, I have a commitment. I have to keep it, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would. But you are welcome to judge me. If I wake up early enough tomorrow, I'll probably go live. No, not Furby jail. Not Furby jail. No, no. Oh, we can raid with Mila. We can raid Mila. We can do that. But I should be back next week starting Halo, or Halo 2, I should say. Y'all take care of yourself. I'm gonna try and get this video out of YouTube limbo. And I will catch you guys later. Bye!